Symbiosis by Silent Whisper. It took a moment for the silence to fully register when Rarity first awoke, but the realization that she was alone was enough to startle her into full awakeness. She blinked a few times, risking a little bit of magic to wipe the crust from her eyes. Her hooves, pleasantly numb, walked onward, and she only stumbled a little bit as her conscious will took control of her movement. A cursory glance around was all that she needed for most of her instantaneous anxiety to fade. The sunlight was still filtering in through the glass roof and the right side windows, surrounded by a sea of stars. She was safe, and more importantly, she was still going the right way. All it had taken as a filly were a few horrifying rumours of ponies getting turned around for the fear of the light on the left to settle in. If it was on the right, then she was right. All right. All right. She smacked her lips and trotted over to the right, keeping a steady pace forward as she did so. A strip of panelling chimed pleasantly as she walked over the pathway. Tilting back her head, Rarity opened her mouth as a trickle of water dripped from a pipe above her, matching her pace perfectly so she could drink. Some landed in her mouth, rinsing the taste of the previous night away, but most of it landed on her back. Humming to herself, she stepped off the water path and looked around. It really was quiet when no pony else was around. The hallway sloped almost indiscernibly upwards, both behind and in front of her, shrouded in a mist that kept her walk pleasantly humid. Ugh, it was going to be a boring day, really, if no pony else was around. Had she fallen behind? She tried to clear her head, focusing on how she felt. No, her energy levels were fine. Better than usual, actually. She must have kept a fantastic pace during her rest. Was every pony else just... Out of the way! A hoarse shout cost Rarity a few missed hoof steps before she regained her steady, even gait. She looked back to see a pair of ponies moving rather urgently towards her. "Move it, Ivy!" wheezed the stallion of the two, propping up the breathless mare next to him as they awkwardly shuffled past her. "Roseluck here's going to pop any minute!" Ivy. Rarity made a face. They made it sound so dreadfully common. At least her plant wasn't of the fruiting variety. She could see the grapevines winding their way around the stallion's limbs, making his trot an awkward, uncomfortable-looking one. "Best of luck," she said after a moment, watching the pregnant mare waddle as fast as she could into the brightly lit fog ahead of her. She mostly meant it too. Foal birth was one of the most risky things a pony could do, and it baffled her that mothers who survived the process often decided to do it again. But she supposed it was in the best interests of pony kind that they continued to have foals. Many didn't make it after all. Many couldn't keep up with the light. She rustled her back gently, enjoying the feeling of cool leaves brushing against her coat. Since the food crisis, after the few months of eternal night, there had been many desperate studies on how to keep equestrians alive when most of the vegetation had died. Her ancestors had been a part of the only one, as far as any pony could figure, that had worked. The few surviving species of plants deserved as much of a fighting chance as the ponies who depended on them after all, and the brilliant plan had been to make the dependency mutual. Sure, it probably had cost them Equestria, wherever they'd left it, but she was still alive. Ponies were still alive, even if they weren't quite completely pony anymore. Muffled hoofsteps sounded from behind Rarity as she perked up. She must have gotten towards the front of the herd then, if ponies were catching up to her like this. Perhaps later she'd slow her pace down and see if she could find where the others were. Oh, it's just you, Rarity. She looked back and beamed. What fortune! Some ponies she actually knew. Rainbow Dash, it's wonderful to see you, darling. How have you been? You're looking healthy? It wasn't true. The chrysanthemums on Rainbow's back were wilting, with most of the petals looking rather shredded. It figured that of all these ponies, Rainbow would get a gorgeous flowering plant, while Rarity was stuck with mere, admittedly attractive, leafy vines. Leave it to a Pegasus to be able to resist the urge to fly while in full bloom. Yeah, look, they were already starting to fade anyway. Rainbow made a face as she matched Rarity's speed. Did you see Roseluck go by? How many ponies were with her? Humming, Rarity peered into the mist. Just one was with her, a stallion, also an earth pony, a grape species, if I'm not mistaken. Rainbow scoffed a hoof against the floor. Ugh, no clue where Lily went then. You sure you didn't see any pony else walk by? I did not. It's entirely possible I missed something. If she went by earlier, I did just awaken. Rainbow blinked, frowned. Really? And you're all the way up here? She shrugged, staring out the window, watching their reflections against the stars beyond. I suppose I just walked rather quickly in my sleep. Isn't that what you usually do? Why, I'm surprised. Rarity cut herself off before her mouth could get ahead of her brain. Why had Rainbow been behind her anyway? Sure, said Rainbow after a moment's pause. I'm the fastest there is. You know that. Every pony knows that. Maybe Lily just went ahead of the other two, and we both missed it. Something about that didn't quite sit right with Rarity, but she let it pass. Have you seen the herd? I'm fairly certain I've gotten ahead of most of them, but I haven't reached the ones who chased the sunrise edge, so I can't be that far from the others, right? Rainbow shifted her wings uncomfortably. A few more pale petals fell limply into her feathers. Yeah, you're about 10 minutes ahead of them, Rarity. I'm glad I found you. I actually wanted to talk to some pony, away from... Shh! Rarity shushed, squinting ahead. Something was ahead of them. In the slowly rotating ship, something dark and motionless. Oh no! Rainbow saw it a few seconds after Rarity had. Roseluck! The Pegasus shouted and bolted forward, leaving a few leaves in her wake, but her concerns were elsewhere. No! This can't be happening! Where's Time Turner, Rose? The figure didn't answer, but one hoof shifted slightly forward. It looked, Rarity noted with queasy disgust, as though there was a good deal more fluid lost than there probably should have been. She looked away as she slowly made her way towards the pair, staring into the starry void outside the window, keeping the view from rotating. Why would he... Rainbow swallowed audibly. Why would he leave you? Foal. Alive. Had to keep... moving, gasped a voice, almost too softly for Rarity to make out what was being said. But no, Rose, you can't do this. You can't give up. You can't... She can't get up, darling, Rarity interrupted. Her foal lives on. Maybe it's even a rose bush like its mother. But she can't keep up. And if she can't keep up... She bit her lip, unwilling to finish the phrase. A prismatic blur whipped around Rarity, shredding another fated petal. You're saying we should just leave her to die? Alone? The herd's not too far behind, and the sunset line's under an hour away. If she falls into the dark side of the path, she'll... Rarity sighed. She knows, Rainbow. You said most of the herd's not too far behind. Some pony will stay with her and talk to her, if she makes it to them. It's likely that her last moments will be in the light, with friends. That's more than most get. Yeah, spat Rainbow, because most get left behind if they're too slow. They... How? Said Rarity softly as a thought occurred to her. Did you know that the sunset line is under an hour away? No answer. She had to tear her gaze away from the window and mist ahead to make sure Rainbow was still with her. The Pegasus refused to meet her gaze. You didn't know where Lily was? Did you just wake up too? But you've always been a fast sleepwalker, Rainbow. She gave Rainbow's back a cursory glance, noted the bulge of roots under her skin, too prominent for any healthy pony. Your plant is sick, dearest. Are you not getting enough energy? I'm fine, spat Rainbow. It's everybody else here who isn't. I needed to talk to you about this. Or to some pony. Rarity quirked an eyebrow warily. Oh? Yeah, listen. So this satellite's round, right? A big, giant wheel? Rainbow gestured upwards. Rarity looked and squinted at the angled mirrors that redirected the sunlight towards her above the glass of the walkway. As far as we know, yes. The sunlight reflects in to feed our plants, which feed us. But it rotates, said Rainbow. So we've got to walk to follow the sun. Why? Because, explained Rarity gently, if we sat still forever, we'd die. Okay, so that makes a sort of sense, but if it's a round wheel, why do we never see the bodies of those who've fallen behind and died? What happens to them? When the plants fully wilt and try to make the last bits of nutrients from the ponies within them, shouldn't we be tripping over skeletons by now? Rarity had an answer for the first part, at least, unpleasant as it was. It was something she'd thought about. Perhaps the ship disposes of them after they reach a certain point in the dark. Perhaps it burns them as fuel to keep the ship spinning. That doesn't explain the water! Rainbow snapped, eyes wide and wild. That doesn't explain the mist! We can't live off of just water, and neither can plants! The whole topic was beginning to make Rarity a little uneasy. Well, perhaps the plants of Equestria couldn't, but these plants are grown to work with us, and us with them. We give them motion, sunlight and breath, and they give us energy. Do you know how plants used to grow? Rainbow's voice was softer, but for some reason it chilled Rarity more than when she'd been almost shouting. They used fertilizer. I don't think. Do we even know what water tastes like anymore? It's been longer than any pony can remember since we left Equestria. Is our water even water? Or it could be made of... Enough! I'm quite tired of your disturbing. No, Rarity! Fertilizer is made of dead things and recycled nutrients. Do we even know what's above the mirrors on this ship? Or below the floor panels? Is some monster driving us to walk in endless circles? Maybe... And her voice dropped to a hushed whisper, barely audible over their hoofsteps and the comforting rustle of the plants on their backs. We're being rotated forever on purpose. Maybe some pony or something doesn't want us to see what happens to those who die. Rainbow, this is ridiculous. It's not though, is it? And Rainbow was almost shouting again. Do we know what's in our water? Have we been drinking the corpses of our friends? For any pony else, Rarity would have laughed at them and immediately sought out new company. But it was Rainbow, and for Rainbow and the last dregs of whatever friendship they had, Rarity gave it a few moments of consideration. It was ridiculous, of course, but even so... Why? Rarity asked, then paused as she heard her own voice shaking. She cleared her throat before continuing with the answer she felt she had to give. Why would that bother me? Rainbow's jaw dropped. What? How can you... It's a different time, Rainbow. We're ponies, but we aren't equestrians, and there may be none of us left anywhere in the universe. If this is what keeps us alive, then it's rather unpleasant to think about, but we still kept every pony going. Rarity nodded, mostly to herself. Yes, it sounded better, more acceptable when she said it out loud. It wasn't enough to fully convince her, but that'd be a thought for a future time, and perhaps further discussion later on. So, let me get this straight, said Rainbow Dash softly, staring Rarity down. You're saying that eating other ponies doesn't even bother you? Rarity scoffed. Well, of course I find the idea disturbing, but I don't think there's much to be done about it. If that is what's truly happening, Honestly, Rainbow, you've gotten yourself so worked up over a theory. I'm sure there's another explanation for where the, deceased have gone. Perhaps it's merely a sanitation measure. She chuckled, swallowing back a strange bout of anxiety. Why, if I give it a bit more thought, I'm sure there's a far simpler explanation for all of this. Yeah, I'd love to hear anything else you've got. How are we still alive, Rez? This is the only explanation I can think of that takes everything into account, and I can't believe you aren't taking this seriously. The only thing worse than Rainbow staring her down, Rarity noted, was when Rainbow didn't look at her at all. Rarity sighed. I am, darling. Truly I am. I admit I don't have a better one off the top of my head, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist, and I think any answer would be far less horrible than the one you've convinced yourself is reality. She stumbled as an awful thought occurred to her. Wait, you'd fallen behind and your plant is looking rather unwell. How long has this thought been bothering you? There was no immediate response, and that made Rarity's pulse race as she put the pieces together. Have you not been drinking, Rainbow? No, the Pegasus said softly. I haven't. Darling, what are you even thinking? You and your plant must work together to stay healthy, or it'll start looking further than your bloodstream for nutrients and fluids. You know that you need to stay hydrated. Something was wrong. It was too quiet, and it took Rarity a few moments to realise that her own hoofsteps were the only ones she could hear. Rainbow had stopped. Was she so sick that her legs had locked up? Rarity turned her head and slowed her pace slightly. Are you okay? What are you doing? Rainbow laughed from where she stood and sat down. Joining Roseluck, she whispered and rested her head between her hooves. Not that it matters much, since not even my best friend seems to care that she's eating ponies. Rainbow, come back! We can still talk about this, shouted Rarity, slowing as much as she dared, watching as her friend slowly faded into the mist behind her. Don't give up! You have to keep walking! You have to! But silence answered her, and then there was nothing to distract Rarity from her distressing thoughts but the whisper of leaves against her back as she left her friend behind. Low Battery by Matthias Unidostries. Later, girls! Shouted Sweetie Belle as she waved a forehoof in goodbye to her two best friends. See you tomorrow, Sweetie Belle, Scootaloo said as she flapped her wings and took off in the direction of her aunt's house. Applebloom smiled, tiredness evident in her eyes, and said, Well, Nelly, I'd say I'd see you girls bright and early Sunday morning, but after today I'm plumb tuckered out. I'm sleeping in tomorrow. Sweetie Belle looked up at the sky, then down at the horizon. Celestia's sun was almost fully set, casting an orange glow throughout the sky. Wow, we've been crusading extra late today, Sweetie Belle remarked. Applebloom pouted. Yeah, and we still got nothing. Sweetie Belle shrugged and said, Well, maybe it means we should try crusading smarter, not harder. Applebloom appeared to think it over for a moment, then replied, Nah. Sweetie Belle just rolled her eyes. Anyways, see you tomorrow, Sweetie Belle, Applebloom said before galloping off. Sweetie Belle watched her friend leave, and then leisurely strolled in the direction of Carousel Boutique. As she walked, the unicorn filly thought to herself, Wow, we really did crusade for a while. It's been exactly 3 hours, 16 minutes and 39 seconds since we met back up after dinner. Well, they had dinner. I was drawing with those crowns Rarity gave me. I still had enough charge from yesterday. I can't believe all my RAM was so focused on crusading ideas that I didn't remember to plug in before going into sleep mode last night. Whatever though, I'm totally fine. Though it's kinda weird that I didn't even get at least a 30% warning. I know my battery is pretty good, but still, I can't believe I still have... Sweetie Belle suddenly ground to a halt as a sudden memory and horrified realization struck her hard and stopped her cold. She recalled in perfect detail the moment she decided to just disable her low battery alerts after a 30% warning flashed before her eyes the other day, causing her to trip and fall just as she was about to kick the ball and score the winning goal. The disappointment of her friends and laughter of Diamond Tiara and Silver Spoon drove her to make that choice. But now she was deeply regretting it. Okay, I'm sure it's fine, Sweetie Belle said nervously, forcing herself to smile even as her eyes twitched and darted around. I'm positive I've still got plenty of power left.
Access settings. Alerts and alarms. Low battery alert settings. 30% alert, disabled. 20% alert, disabled. 10% alert, disabled. 5% alert, disabled. 4% alert, disabled. 3% alert, disabled. 2% alert, disabled. 1% alert, disabled.
Why did I disable all of them for? Sweetie Belle groaned.
Over 20% alert, enabled. 20% alert, enabled. 10% alert, enabled. 5% alert, enabled. 4% alert, enabled. 3% alert, enabled. 2% alert, enabled. 1% alert, enabled.
That's so annoying. I wish there was just an all off or all on toggle or some...
Low battery. 10% battery remaining.
Sweetie Belle's jaw dropped as she stared at the message that flashed before her eyes. What? She squeaked out. Oh no. This can't be happening. I... Sweetie Belle immediately took off, running into town as fast as her legs could carry her. She jumped over rocks, hopped over potholes, and even weaved in and out around the occasional pony that was out enjoying what little Ponyville offered in the realm of nightlife. Eventually, she did make it back to the Carousel Boutique and ended up headbutting the door right open, and then swiftly kicking it closed.
Low battery. 5% battery remaining.
I spent 5% just running here? Sweetie Belle exclaimed in disbelief, then looked out at the darkened boutique with her night vision without thinking. Then the light level suddenly seemed to drop dramatically, making it too hard to see.
Low power mode. Enhanced vision, night vision, and zoom vision are disabled to conserve power.
Of course, Sweetie Belle moaned as she stumbled about in the dark in search for the light switch. I'd probably ask for Rarity for help at this point, but since I've been so responsible lately, she trusted me to stay here alone and feed Opal while she visits her boutique in Canterlot. She won't be back until tomorrow at noon. Is this my reward for being responsible? And Applebloom thought her first time was bad. Sweetie Belle lamented as she felt around on the wall with her forehooves.
Low battery. 4% battery remaining.
Finally, she found the light switch and the boutique was fully illuminated. Sighing with relief, Sweetie Belle turned to her left side and focused on a spot on her body.
Open charger port. Let out charger cable.
Normally disguised by her white fur, a small door opened up on Sweetie Belle's side, and out of the door came a long cable with a 2-pronged plug on the end of it. Once the cable was finally out, coming to a length equal to Sweetie Belle from tail to horn tip, the filly smiled and powered up her horn and grabbed the plug in a light green aura, levitating it up to eye level.
Low battery. 3% battery remaining.
Her horn promptly blinked out and the plug fell unceremoniously to the floor.
Low power mode. TK capabilities and magic system are disabled to conserve power.
Oh, come on! Sweetie Belle shouted. Then she quickly knelt down and grabbed the cord in her mouth. She frantically looked around like a lost puppy for an agonizingly long, panic-stricken moment. Then she spotted an electrical wall outlet on the wall directly opposite to where she was standing. Relief flooded through her and she quickly started to run towards the outlet.
Low battery. 2% battery remaining.
All 4 of Sweetie Belle's legs suddenly went limp and she fell forward and flat on her stomach like a rag doll.
Low power mode. Limb movement and organic movement mimicry system are disabled to conserve power.
No! Sweetie Belle muttered through the cord in her mouth. As embarrassing as this was, fear of humiliation was the least of her worries. Losing power now would mean none of today's experiences would be saved. Everything she had recorded in her short-term RAM would poof out of existence, instead of being compressed and transferred into her permanent long-term hard drive. Not only would be a wasted day for her, but yet another opportunities for others to look at her with suspicion. Any possibility of her secret getting out had to be taken very seriously, and not remembering the entire day the next morning was not something she could afford. As Sweetie Belle lay flat on her belly, she could see the outlet on the wall right in front of her. It was only a few steps away from her, so close yet so far.
Warning! Short-term memory not saved to hard drive. 11 hours and 18 minutes worth of RAM data will be lost. To prevent memory loss, plug in battery immediately.
No. Okay, I can still make it. It's right there, Sweetie Belle thought frantically, and she spat the charging cord so that fell right onto her right forehoof.
Power settings. Rerouting power. Reroute to limb movement. Sight. Rerouting all remaining power to limb movement and sight.
It suddenly felt to Sweetie Belle as if her entire body had gone numb, including her nose, tongue, and throat. Her sense of hearing also vanished, with all the grace of a speaker being unplugged.
Low power mode. Speech and vocalization system. Hearing, smell, touch, and taste are disabled to conserve power.
This feels awful. I hate not being able to touch anything, Sweetie Belle thought as she fought the urge to freak out.
Warning! Due to critically low power levels, limb movement will be limited and delayed. Sight will be basic and unenhanced.
Don't care, just let me focus, Sweetie Belle hissed mentally as she forced her hind legs to move. With great effort on her part, she lifted her hind legs up enough so that her back hooves were flat on the floor. She then pushed down with them as hard as she could as she walked her forward, scooting herself across the floor and straight towards the electrical outlet. As she slid ever closer to the outlet, she raised her right forehoof slightly and gave it a slight flick and twist so that the charger cable hanging across it swung and wrapped around the hoof, coming to a stop on the top of the foreleg.
Low battery. 1% battery remaining.
Oh my gosh! No, please, no! I had a good day today. I don't want to forget, Sweetie Belle thought as she shakily raised her right forehoof towards the outlet.
Warning! Short-term memory not saved to hard drive. 11 hours and 19 minutes worth of RAM data will be lost. To prevent memory loss, plug in battery immediately.
I know, I'm trying, Yes! If Sweetie Belle's organic movement mimicry system had been operating at the time, she would have let out a huge sigh of relief as her chest heaved up and down as she stared at the end of the charging cable, now securely plugged into the outlet. Oh, thanks Celestia and Luna and Twilight and Cadence and even Discord, Sweetie Belle thought with immense euphoric relief as she felt the percentage of her battery level slowly increase.
Speech and vocalization system enabled. Hearing, smell, touch, and taste enabled. All senses set to base level.
Sweetie Belle smiled as she was able to feel the floor under her belly again. Whew, what a nightmare. Nothing worse than losing your touch, Sweetie Belle quipped.
Low power mode. Limb movement, organic movement mimicry system. TK capabilities and magic system are disabled to conserve power.
Sweetie Belle nodded mentally and remarked, Yeah, I know. I don't need them now. I'm okay with just lying here and waiting. Sweetie Belle's attention was caught by the sound, and she managed to move her eyes to one side to see Opalescence stealthily moving towards her. The cat approached the fallen filly, tilting her head at Sweetie Belle in curiosity. Go away, Opal, Sweetie Belle said grumpily. Opal frowned at this, clearly insulted by the command. The cat proceeded to ignore the order and began licking her forepaw to clean herself. Ah! Sweetie Belle groaned, not at all eager to be the captive audience of Opal taking a bath. Opal paused in her grooming to cut her eyes at the limp filly. Then the cat's eyes drifted over to the charging cable plugged into the wall. Opal then put her paw back down and walked over towards the wall in the plug. No! Opal! Don't touch that! Sweetie Belle hissed. Opal paused and turned to Sweetie Belle, and the filly could have sworn she saw the cat smirk at her. Don't even think about it, Sweetie Belle said as she glared at the cat as hard as she could. Opal ignored the warning and began to almost playfully bat at the plug with her paws. "Stop!" Sweetie Belle said desperately, her glare becoming a pleading look. Opal slowly turned her head towards Sweetie Belle as she rested her paw right on the plug. "Please," Sweetie Belle whispered. All it took was a swipe of her paw to unplug the charger cable. "Why you?" Sweetie Belle shouted. Opal meowed loudly before turning and walking away with a swaggering step and a swing of her tail.
Power settings. Rerouting power. Reroute to limb movement. Sight. TK capabilities. Rerouting all remaining power to limb movement. Sight and TK capabilities.
Opal heard the sound of hooves stomping hard on the floor and turned just in time to see the filly that was limp as a ragdoll a moment ago flying towards her with outstretched forelegs. Opal hissed as she just narrowly avoided Sweetie Belle's pounce. The cat ran towards the kitchen with the furious filly in hot pursuit. Sweetie Belle was too angry to care about anything as she lit up her horn and snatched up mugs and plates in her green aura, then hurled them in Opal's general direction. Opal yelled as a dish shot over her back like a frisbee as she ran across the kitchen counter. She then jumped back down onto the floor and made a quick dash underneath Sweetie Belle's legs. Sweetie Belle attempted a sharp turn, which didn't go so well for her due to the lack of grip her hooves had on the kitchen floor, and the long charge cable hanging off of her, which tripped her up slightly. With a fierce growl, Sweetie Belle got back up and ran out of the kitchen, just in time to see Opal fleeing up the stairs. Sweetie Belle followed and chased Opal right into the spare room the filly always stayed in whenever her parents left her with Rarity. Once inside, Sweetie Belle kicked the door closed, smiling wickedly as she knew now that Opal was trapped. Sure enough, the cat was backed up against the wall beside the bed, her back arched and her fur standing up on end. Sweetie Belle gave an evil chuckle as she stalked towards her foe, her horn glowing as she levitated a large pitcher of water over to it. Opal's eyes widened at the sight of the pitcher, and she closed her eyes and circled up into a ball as she waited for the inevitable. Opal opened her eyes and uncurled herself at the loud noise. The cat saw that Sweetie Belle had dropped the pitcher of water, which now lay empty on the now damp floor. Also, Sweetie Belle herself had fallen on her side and lay completely limp and unmoving. Opal blinked and stared at the filly for a moment, then smirked and hissed at her, before walking right past her towards the door. It wasn't until Opal had reached the door that she suddenly realized that it was closed. And it wasn't until after she'd scratched at it a few times that she realized she had no way of opening it. Opal huffed and walked back over to the fallen filly. The cat looked at Sweetie Belle for a moment, then huffed again and meowed loudly into the filly's ear. When that did nothing, Opal began pawing impatiently at Sweetie Belle's face. After getting no response from the filly, Opal had then sat quietly and took a closer look at Sweetie Belle. The cat's frown deepened, and slowly but surely, the beginnings of a feeling of actual concern began to take shape.
Warning! Battery level critical. RAM loss data imminent. 11 hours and 19 minutes worth of RAM data will be lost. Plug in charger cable into compatible electrical outlet immediately.
Opal jumped back at the sound of the serious-sounding unfamiliar voice coming from the filly. Once she got over her initial surprise, Opal's seeds of actual concern finally sprouted as feeding times in the recent past came to mind. The cat looked over at the charging cable still hanging out of Sweetie Belle, and then over at the electrical outlet in the wall she'd been cornered against mere moments ago. With an annoyed huff, Opal approached the cable and picked it up with her mouth, rearing up onto her hind legs and using her forepaws to the best of her ability. Opal managed to insert the plug into the electrical outlet. After this, Opal leapt up onto the bed, kneaded the blankets with her claws, and then curled up for a much needed nap. "Thank you, Opal." The end. Rainbow Dash is average by Dreadnought. On a beautiful summer day in Ponyville, Rainbow Dash lay on a fluffy white cloud. This sight was all too common, as the Pegasus had a reputation for taking long daytime naps, but today the cloud was quiet, without the usual snores that were loud enough to raise the dead. The Pegasus had often been known to lounge around reading or rereading the Daring Do adventures, but both her forelegs hung limply off the edge of the cloud, and she just stared off into the distance. None of the normal hustle and bustle below caught her attention. She just seemed to be lost in thought, something extremely uncommon for this mare who was often chided for hitting first and asking questions later. "Why so blue?" came a voice. She looked up at the figure floating above. "Oh, hi Discord," she said, then laid her head back down on the cloud. "Oh, hi Discord? Oh, hi Discord? Is that all? I, the Lord of Chaos, now merit a simple, oh hi Discord? How are you?" she asked indifferently. "Well, I'm fine, thank you for asking. I'm still getting used to the fact that Twilight now has a castle that literally grew out of the ground last week. And then there's... wait a minute." He pointed an accusatory tailor at her. "You still didn't answer my question. Why so blue?" Rainbow Dash sighed. "In case you haven't noticed, I'm always blue." Discord studied her for a moment. "Well, that's easy to fix." He snapped a claw. She looked down at her coat. "I'm yellow? Yes, that's an improvement," said Discord as he rubbed his chin. "But still not enough." A light bulb flashed above his head. He snapped his claw again. Rainbow Dash narrowed her eyes and growled. "What did you do?" Discord pulled a mirror out of thin air. Rainbow Dash grabbed it and stared in disbelief. She was a pale yellow, of course, and now her dark pink eyes shined a bright blue, and her rainbow-coloured mane was a light pink. "What?" Snapping a photograph, Discord proclaimed, "Oh, now you look almost like the best pony in Equestria. I can't wait to show Fluttershy your photo." Rainbow Dash looked him squarely in the eyes. "Change me back now!" He stuck out his tongue. "Oh, you're no fun." He snapped his claws, and the familiar blue Pegasus had returned. "I'm not really in the mood for your antics today, Discord," huffed Rainbow Dash as she rolled away from the Draconicus. He floated into her field of view. "And when are you ever in the mood for my chaos?" She huffed and rolled over again. "Tell me what's bothering you, maybe I can help." He floated in front of her once again. He waited for a moment, then complained. "Oh, come on, isn't telling others your problems something friends do? Didn't some pony write a letter to the princess about this?" A flash later, and he wore reading glasses as he examined several pieces of parchment. "Oh, fine, I'm just bummed out today. I can see that as clear as Celestia's baking sun overhead," he said, wearing sunglasses and a swimsuit while applying a heavy layer of sunscreen. "Why are you bummed out? Twilight went through this portal to another world. There's a whole other Rainbow Dash over there that... Wait, are you telling me that Twilight is out of the kingdom? I could get away with anything and no pony can stop me?" He tapped his claws together and a maniacal grin spread across his face. Suddenly sitting up, she glared at him. "You wouldn't!" He booped her lightly on the nose. "Haven't you heard? I'm reformed." Rubbing her muzzle, she said, "Hopefully this time around." Discord ignored her. "So you're bummed out that Twilight gets to go to this other world?" "Yeah, there's another Rainbow Dash over there that she's met. But she says we can't go visit them because she thinks having two of every pony would make things a mess." Discord rubbed his chin. "So, you want to meet a Rainbow Dash from another dimension?" "Yeah, that's what I just said," said an irritated Rainbow Dash. "You don't think there's another way to meet an interdimensional Rainbow Dash?" She thought for a moment. "No?" Discord looked shocked. "No? No? No?" cried Discord as flashing arrows literally pointed at him. "You?" A bell started ringing. That's right. Now, Johnny, tell her what she's won. A disembodied voice began. Rainbow Dash, you've just won a new you. She cocked her head. Huh? Discord shook his head. Follow me, he ordered as he flew to the ground. A moment later, she was looking up at him quizzically. He produced from nowhere a pair of scissors. What are those? She asked. Interdimensional scissors, very popular with the kids these days. He reached up into the air above him, and there was a loud ripping noise. Suddenly, a blue blur fell through and landed right in front of them. The blue Pegasus sat upright and adjusted her glasses. Pointing at the new arrival, she demanded, Who's that? I'm the Doctor. What? Asked Rainbow Dash. Discord sighed. Rainbow Dash, let me introduce you to Rainbow Dash. Rainbow Dash stared at the new mare. Adjusting her glasses, the Pegasus said, Actually, it's Dr. Rainbow Dash. Doctor? Asked Rainbow. So, you're like some sort of brain surgeon? No. She shook her head. PhD in theoretical physics. Now, can some pony... She looked at Discord. Can some creature tell me what's going on? Of course, my little Dashy, said Discord condescendingly. I brought you to another dimension to meet your parallel self. You did? She asked skeptically. Yes, I am the Lord of... Oh my gosh! Interdimensional travel is theoretically possible, but developing a practical means is considered impossible given the inadequacies in our understanding of quantum physics, not to mention the engineering limitations in both materials science and power generation. How did you do it? Did you harness the fluctuations in neutrinos to create a transphasmic field? Did you power it with an antimatter-matter reaction? Or is nuclear fusion enough? Can we test quantum entanglement across dimensions? What about... A blue hoop caused her to mumble her next few words. Seriously, I have no idea what you're talking about, complained Rainbow Dash as she removed her hoop and shook it free of drawl. Discord laughed. Suddenly, he was wearing a deerstalker's hat. It's all very elementary, my dear Doctor. I use nothing so unbelievable. The answer is chaos magic. He blew bubbles from his pipe. Dr. Dash stared at him. No, seriously, how did you do it? Chaos magic, said an increasingly annoyed Discord. This is Discord, explained Rainbow Dash, the Lord of Chaos. Wait, cried Dr. Dash. You mean like that lawn ornament in the Gardens of Canterlot? I thought it was just a myth. Ah, so my parallel self is still in stone. Maybe I'll arrange a prison break. Standing proudly, the Pegasus proclaimed. So if she's the brainiac, then I guess I'm the cool Rainbow Dash. Actually, clarified Discord, you're not the cool Rainbow Dash. What? Discord reached up into the dimensional rift and rummaged around for a moment before pulling out another Rainbow Dash. Extraordinary, remarked Dr. Dash. What? Cried the new blue Pegasus, who seemed to be wearing battle armor. Who are you? Obviously Rainbow Dash, replied Dr. Dash. Hey, I'm Master Chief Dash to you, called out the new Rainbow Dash. Whoa, said Rainbow Dash. How'd you get that scar? Master Chief pointed to her right eye. This old thing, it's from a Huazotl. You've battled a Huazotl alongside Daring Do? Puh. I've had to save that amateur from a Huazotl at least a dozen times. What? Yep, I've seen my fair share of combat. You see this scar? It was given to me by Nightmare Moon, right before I sent her sorry ass back to the moon. You see this one? It's from when I defeated Discord. And you can't see them, but I've broken 3 ribs and punctured a lung from when I clobbered Turek. Wow, so you're like the leader of the Elements of Harmony? Asked an awestruck Rainbow Dash. No, I work alone. You've defeated all of them by yourself? Discord leaned down and whispered into Rainbow Dash's ear. I told you she was the cool one. On a scale of cool, you're just average. Rainbow Dash stiffened. So, what am I? The lame dumb one? Discord chuckled, wearing waders and an old hat. He cast a fishing line through the portal. There was a tug, and he reeled in another blue Pegasus. The blue Pegasus flopped on the ground like a fish for a moment until Discord vanished the fishing gear. "What's up?" "He's a stallion!" cried Rainbow Dash. "Well," said Dr. Dash, "there was a 50% probability that he would be male in his dimension. Assuming that Discord is pulling randomly, then there is an increasing probability that he would pull from a male dimension." The other two mares stared blankly at her. "Sup, ladies," said the newest addition. "Hey, you three kinda look like me. Maybe we're related." Dr. Dash continued. "Actually, we are parallel permutations of the same equine. Given that you are male, you have at most 63 of the same chromosomes as the rest of us, but it is likely there could be some additional genetic anomalies." "Huh?" he asked. "You should learn to speak Ponish." "I am speaking Ponish," he said with increased irritation in her voice. "There you go, I knew you could do it." Rainbow Dash said, "She's saying that we're from different worlds. I'm Rainbow Dash, this is Dr. Dash, and this is Master Chief Dash. I'm Rainbow Blitz, so are we related or something?" Discord said, "He's the dumb Rainbow Dash. On an intelligence scale, Rainbow Dash, you're just average." Looking up at Discord, Blitz said, "Whoa dude, are you like sick or something?" "Well, if I'm not the smartest or dumbest or coolest, then at least I'm the only one with a royal title. I'm the element of loyalty," she beamed. A buzzer sounded. "Not really." He snapped his claws and the rift vomited another Rainbow Dash. All four Pegasi stared in disbelief. "Discord!" the newest arrival reprimanded. "I should have known it was you. I was in the middle of a very important peace negotiation between the Yaks and the Griffins when..." She saw the other Pegasi lighting her horn. She adjusted her crown as she dusted some dirt from her dress. The Draconicus said, "Ladies, gentle stallion, allow me to introduce Her Royal Highness, Princess Rainbow Dash." An awkward silence followed as no pony knew what to say. Discord finally said, "She is the ruler of Equestria, a nearly divine alicorn, and your friends here are petty commoners. So, Rainbow Dash, your title puts you as average on the royal scale." But, no pony works harder than me. You should see how hard I train for the Wonderbolts." Discord took a shovel, climbed into the rift, and a moment later returned with a skeleton. "Who's that?" asked a horrified Rainbow Dash. "Oh, this one is the version of you that literally worked herself to death. Compared to her and the spaced out stone over there, your work ethic is just average." But... "Oh, we can keep this up." A moment later, a beautiful Pegasus mare in a stunning dress dropped out of the rift. "What's going on? I was in the middle of modelling at Canterlot Royal Fashion Show. Now I'm lost somewhere in the country." Another pony dropped through. This one was coloured like Rainbow Dash, but had the build of bulk biceps. Discord smiled. "The one on the left is the most feminine Rainbow Dash. The steroid-fueled one on the right is the most macho. Once again, you're just average." "What?" Another pair dropped through. One was a little filly still in diapers. The other one appeared older than even Granny Smith. "Again, Rainbow Dash, you're just average," chuckled Discord. "I'm just average?" she said, trying to process the revelation as her ego took a nosedive. "Yes!" cried Discord. Silence reigned, except for the scratch of pencils on parchment. "Actually, Discord," began Dr. Dash as she looked at her calculations, "you've just disproven your own thesis." He turned to the bespectacled mare. "How do you figure that?" "Well, all you've produced are extreme versions of us, but she is average. She's the anomaly." The top of Discord's head blew at the revelation. "What?" "Because she's so normal, she's abnormal compared to all of us." "What? I can prove you wrong." Discord used a magnet and 3 Rainbow Dashes flew through the rift. One was a police officer, the second was a construction worker, and the third was wearing a war bonnet. Dr. Dash just smiled. Discord began shaking the rift like a salt shaker. 7 more Pegasi dropped out. Desperately, Discord looked to Dr. Dash, who merely quirked an eyebrow. Wielding a baseball bat, Discord beat the rift, causing dozens of Pegasi to drop out and onto the ground. She stared deep into the smirking face of Dr. Dash as she took even more wild swings at the rift. Finally, huffing, he landed on the ground and surveyed the crowd. Scores, no hundreds of individuals stared back at him. They all shared confused looks or stared at him like he was a raving lunatic. Came the familiar voice of Dr. Dash. Like you were saying, Rainbow Dash is totally average. Because of that, she's completely unaverage. Discord collapsed to the ground. A blue Draconicus with a rainbow mane leaned over him. Ha! I thought we Draconicuses were supposed to be tough. I must be at least 20% tougher than him. Rainbow Dash looked over the vast sea of rainbow manes. Turning to Dr. Dash, she said, "So, I'm average?" She nodded. "Yes, and that's what makes you totally unique." Rainbow Dash considered her words for a moment. She shot into the air and spread her forelegs wide as she proclaimed, "I'm average!" The mirror rippled, and a lavender alicorn and blue dragon arrived in the library. "Wow, I'm glad that's over. I hope we don't have to deal with an interdimensional crisis again for a long time." "Twilight!" cried Rarity as she raced up to the princess. "You have to come right away!" She turned and bolted out the door with Twilight and Spike close behind. Reaching a balcony, Twilight skidded to a halt as she surveyed the scene before her. Outside Ponyville was awash in a literal tide of rainbow-coloured manes. Several hundred more blue Pegasi flitted about in the air. In the foreground there was a full-fledged hoof game featuring full rosters of Rainbow Dashers and thousands of cheering Rainbow Dashers as spectators. In the distance, sonic rainbooms exploded with such frequency, it was like a daytime fireworks show. "Whoa," said Spike. "It looks like Rainbow Dash found the mirror pond." "What's going on here?" Twilight wondered. Discord leaned down from behind and said with a wicked grin, "Rainbow Dash is getting to know herself." Movie Night, Judgment Nay by Miles Prower 06. Hitch stood in front of his bathroom mirror, wondering if his aqua green mane was acceptable as it was, or if he should apply a little styling gel. If he was perfectly honest, he even felt a little strange going out without his sash and badge, instead opting for a simple small saddlebag much akin to Sunny's, save for all the cutie bark buttons she had on her strap. Looking himself up and down one more time, Maritime Bay's off-duty sheriff deemed himself presentable and turned to leave the bathroom, shutting off the light behind him. Normally his days off were spent relaxing at a nice secluded spot on the beach, where he didn't risk spotting litter on the street and instantly kicking himself into sheriff mode. But that was a risk he would have to take today, because Sunny Starscout had invited him to go see a movie. It had only been a couple weeks since they had played their part in bringing magic back to Equestria and reuniting the nation, and Hitch had begun to take inventory, as it were. His friendship with Sunny had been considerably strained because of her activism, and he was feeling increasingly guilty over that because she and her father had turned out to be right all along. So when he had gotten a text from her a couple days ago asking him to the movies this evening, he immediately said yes, seeing it as an opportunity to continue healing their strained friendship, making sure he had enough bits to cover 2 tickets, popcorn and a soda. He was out his front door and into the cool Maritime Bay evening.
I gotta be honest, I'm feeling tired tonight, but the look in your eyes got me feeling alive inside. Every moment, here and now with you. No, nothing is better with you. I feel brand new. You and I can run away till we take flight. Nothing in our sight can take away what we can do tonight.
The most common sight by far for the past 2 weeks were orange construction pylons, as crews worked to remove all of Cantalogic's unicorn entrapment devices from the street, and then resurface the affected areas. The biggest factory in town was also undergoing a major rebranding, cancelling all of his anti-unicorn and Pegasus devices, and beginning to design products that were beneficial to all races and their settlements. Regardless of city-wide street repairs, Maritime Bay's nightlife was as lively as ever, with venues all over seeing increased revenue from the new unicorn and Pegasus visitors. The Maritime Bay Cineplex was near the centre of town and was currently showing 4 films: Horns, Harry Trotter, Dirty Prancing, and the main attraction for the past few weeks was Judgment Day, a highly anticipated sequel to a hit sci-fi film that had come out before Sonny's time. Construction crews hadn't yet gotten to the 10 unicorn entrapment devices on the Walken Street, so the Lions had to make do in making their way around them, as pylons and caution tape had been put up around each one. It made them a bit longer and curvier, but ponies didn't seem to mind. They were doing a good job of staying clear of the tram tracks, something else Hitch frequently had to remind younger ponies of when he was on duty. Off to the side of the line, over by 2 of the movie posters, he noticed a familiar apricot earth pony wave at him, and he gave a smile and trotted over. "Good evening, Sonny, and here I thought I'd beat you here. You haven't been waiting long, have you?" "Don't be silly. You'd have to be late for me to be waiting. I've just been taking in the sights tonight. It's amazing seeing every pony enjoying our city together," Sonny replied. She did have a point. The line to the theatre's ticket booth was 30 ponies long, and it was filled with a mix of earth ponies, unicorns, and Pegasi. "So, ready to get in line?" Hitch asked, and his friend nodded, and they began walking past the posters to get around to the end of the line around the corner. "You think movies like this will stop with the reunification?" Hitch asked as he glanced at the theatrical poster for Horns. I wouldn't be so sure. In fact, I think it might get better as filmmakers from different races come together and discuss what they've been doing," Sonny replied. "Really?" Hitch asked. "Well, you don't think we're the only ones who let our biases influence our movies, do you? Zip was telling me of a Zephyr Heights movie called Friday the 15th, about a mass-murdering unicorn named Jason Voorhoofs who used his horn to stab ponies who camped near Crystal Lagoon. And Bridalwood isn't immune either. One of Izzy's favourite movies is called Blazing Saddles," Sonny explained. "Blazing Saddles?" "Yeah, it's a Horner Brothers comedy about an earth pony sheriff that comes to protect a town full of racist Pegasi." "Should I be offended at that?" Hitch asked, and got a giggle out of Sonny for his trouble as they got in line, with 2 earth ponies and a unicorn filling in behind them a few moments later.
Driving through our memories, hand in hand, you and me, we were making plans to be forever, babe. I know you don't need me, but I see you and me, we can make it happen. Be my forever, babe.
In all seriousness, in response to your first question, I think some of the most blatant biases will fade, but not disappear completely. Self-deprecation is a form of art after all, Sonny told him. "So what'll it be? Judgment Day?" Hitch asked. "Yep, I've actually heard nothing but good things. Even Zip and Izzy liked it. They popped in to see it the day after everyone's magic had been restored, Sunny answered. Nothing official had been decided, but a lot of ponies around town had come to call it Reunification Day. That's the sequel to the one that was before we were born, right? The one about Unicorn and Pegasus robots from the future? Yep, that's the one. I remember how they closed off a section of Cantor Logic to film part of the sequel, Sunny answered. Yup, I remember having to escort you off the premises that day, Hitch said, another pang of guilt hitting him in the chest as he recalled how she had attempted to protest the making of the film. It must have showed in his expression, because Sunny noticed. Hey, don't worry about it, water under the bridge as far as I'm concerned, Sunny reassured him with a smile. He returned the smile and shrugged the feeling off as they stepped up to the ticket booth. 2 for Judgment Day, please, Hitch told the ticket agent on the other side of the glass. Together or separate? The older mare asked. Together, came the simultaneous reply from both ponies. They both did double takes, glancing at each other and giving a nervous chuckle. I can take care of it, Sunny, Hitch told her as he began to reach into his saddlebag. Nonsense! I invited you, remember? Sunny countered, also reaching into a saddlebag. Hitch paused and realised she did have a point. That'll be 4 bits, ma'am, the ticket agent told her. Sunny came out with the correct change, and she was handed 2 tickets, and they made their way over to the doors. Popcorn is on me though, you hear? Hitch said with a smile. The pair of ponies passed through the double doors and quickly picked up their snacks, extra large popcorn and 2 sodas, which Sunny let Hitch hand over the bits for. Now they were fully ready. They went over to the usher who took their tickets. Theatre 1 on your left. Thank you and enjoy your movie. Their popcorn smelled so good that they started munching on it on their walk down the hall to their theatre. Where do you want to sit? Hitch asked. I've always loved it right up front. Come on, she told him excitedly, walking down the outer aisle of the theatre, going right down to the front row, where luckily the 2 centremost seats were still empty. They hadn't realised how close they had cut it, because not even 2 minutes after they had sat down, the lights dimmed and the various filmmaking factoids faded out to the Lighthouse Entertainment intro slate.
3 billion equine lives ended on August 29, 3997. The survivors of the nuclear fire called the war Judgment Day. They lived only to face a new nightmare, the war against the machines.
When Sunny and Hitch came out of the front doors of the Cineplex 2.5 hours later, their hearts were racing, and the dusk sky from when they had gone in was now a clear starry night. Whew, what a ride! Hitch exclaimed, glancing up at the review quotes that were posted up on the main marquee of the building. How is very good only 3 stars? Ugh, critics, he said, rolling his eyes. Come on, I'll walk you home. You sure? It's a nice enough night, why not? Together they walked towards the coast. Well, I can't say this too often, but that was better than the original in every single conceivable way, Sunny said. You got that right. Wonder if they'll make any more, Hitch added. I'd say leave it as it is. How many movies about robots travelling back in time to change the future by killing John Trotter do you think they can make? Sunny asked. Hitch laughed. Those special effects were really something. A Pegasus robot made of liquid. And those shots in Cantor Logic. Wow! You'd really think they'd have a section of that place filled with molten steel? Hitch commented as they cleared Maritime Bay's main square and headed to the outskirts, the streets turning to dirt paths and grassy hills. So where do you want to go next time? Nice dinner perhaps? Plenty of places offer a great view of the coast, or plenty of atmospheric places downtown. Hitch told her. Wow, you make it sound like we might be dating, Sunny teased. Hitch nearly stumbled in his gait, but saved it for the last moment as they made their way up the final hill to Sunny's lighthouse, which was still undergoing repairs, having scaffolding all around the damaged tower, but had enough work done now to be considered livable, at least on the first 2 floors. The off-duty sheriff swallowed a nervous lump in his throat. Are we? He asked, his cheeks flushing pink. Well, isn't that forward of you? Sunny said, smiling at him. I'm sorry, Sunny, I shouldn't have said that, and Hitch got tangled up in his words, and got another giggle out of Sunny. Hitch, I'm teasing you, Sunny said, playfully elbowing him, as they came up to a front door. Besides, I said it first, we've known each other our whole lives, so I don't think it would be that surprising to too many ponies in town if we did get that far. Hitch smiled at her as she dug the key out to unlock the front door, and she opened it before turning back to him. I had a great time tonight, Hitch. To answer your last question, you can take me anywhere. I'm not picky. I just know you'll pick somewhere amazing. With that, she held up her front right hoof, and Hitch immediately knew what to do, bringing his right hoof up as well. Up high, down low, hitch it to a post, flip it sunny side up and on a piece of toast. Instead of letting go at the end, Sunny held on and took a step forward and kissed him on the cheek as she stepped back towards her door. Now her cheeks were a delightful shade of pink as well. And that, she began, was the answer to your second to last question. I'll let you think about it while you plan our second date. She turned and stepped into her house and turned to give him one more smile as she began to close the door. Good night, Hitch. It was all Hitch could do to return the smile as his cheeks positively burned and his mind went a mile a minute. The door latch closed, leaving Maritime Bay Sheriff to slowly turn and walk back towards town, wondering what kind of step he had just taken.
Better together, you and me, we will be. Leave the light on for me, but honey, let me down slowly. I've never been a dreamer till I met you. I know I don't deserve it, but honey, I need it. I've never been a dreamer till I met you.
Finn. The Friendship Express Dilemma by Hamster Wizard. The exact nature of the situation is irrelevant. The problem seeks to answer a moral quandary. Rainbow Dash raised a hoof once more. Twilight flicked her pointer in her friend's direction. No, for the last time, there is no way to stop the trolley. Rainbow Dash slowly lowered her hoof. Twilight then flicked her pointer back toward her chalkboard, tapping on the rudimentary drawing. It depicted a trolley approaching a fork in the tracks, with 5 ponies on the straightway and a single pony on the alternate path. Off the side there was a drawing of a pony who appeared to be Trixie, standing beside a lever. Applejack then spoke up. Well, ain't much of a question if you all ask me. Saving 5 ponies is a heck of a lot better than saving 1. Yes, but you are doing so at the cost of another pony's life, a death which you are responsible for, Twilight rebutted. Fluttershy spoke next. Aren't you responsible for the death of the other 5 if you do nothing? Twilight leaned in, uncomfortably close to Fluttershy's face. Are you? She whispered. That's the way I figure it. Some pony dies whichever way you slice it, so you may as well save as many ponies as you can. Applejack nodded. Yes, dear, but how could you live with yourself after causing the death of another pony? Rarity asked. Applejack pulled her hat down. We all must live with our sins, Rarity, trudging ever forward through this cruel joke we call life. An awkward silence fell over the room. I mean, oh shucks, I sure love apples. Right, well, what about you, Starlight? You've been awfully quiet, Twilight said. Starlight Glimmer, who had been leaning back in her chair nonchalantly, snapped her attention back to the topic. Oh, well, I wouldn't pull the lever. Because you couldn't hurt another pony, right? Fluttershy asked. Huh? No, if the 5 ponies are too stupid to get out of the way, then they deserve to die, Starlight answered. Every pony was silent for a moment before Rainbow Dash spoke up. Starlight, they're tied to the tracks. How can you know that for sure? How do you know they're tied to the tracks? Starlight asked. Twilight face hoofed. Starlight, the semantics don't matter. The point is that if you do nothing, 5 ponies die. But if you pull the lever, then 1 pony dies. Starlight tilted her head. And I know that because... It doesn't matter, for the sake of hypothetical argument. You just know. It doesn't even need to be a trolley, Twilight shouted. Starlight pouted. Okay, geez. I'd pull the lever then. And kill the other pony? Twilight asked. Yeah, sure, whatever. But how can you be sure that's the morally correct choice? Twilight asked. Starlight shrugged. If I do nothing, I kill other 5 through my inaction. Applejack nodded. Yep, that's what I figured. But what if I could outfly the trolley? Oh, for the love of Rainbow, for the sake of argument, the trolley is moving infinitely fast. You cannot outfly it, Twilight groaned. If it's moving infinitely fast, then shouldn't we not have time to pull the lever? Fluttershy asked. Starlight piped up. Actually, an object's mass increases the closer it gets to the speed of light. Anything moving at infinite speed would theoretically destroy the entire planet, making the entire exercise meaningless. What if I stopped the pony who tied them to the tracks before they did it? Rainbow sounded smug. Twilight's eye twitched. You can't. Why not? Rainbow asked. Starlight smirked. Yeah, why not, Twi? You just can't, okay? Dash opened her mouth once more. But what if... It's hypothetical, Dash. We are just assuming that all you may do in the situation is pull the lever or not pull the lever. That is all, Twilight said, sounding rather irate. Rainbow put her hoof to her chin in thought for a moment, and did indeed manifest a thought. What if I, hypothetically, could outfly the hypothetical trolley? She said, making air quotes with her hooves. Twilight ignored her, turning back to her friends. Rarity, how about you then? The train is not destroying the entire planet then? Rarity asked cautiously. No. But it is still moving too fast to stop or untie the ponies from the tracks? Yes. Oh my, this is quite a conundrum. Rarity pondered the question for a moment before speaking. I believe I would pull the lever and simply bear the guilt myself. Twilight nodded. Most ponies say that they would pull the lever, reasoning that they are responsible for the death of the 5 if they do nothing, and that 5 lives are worth more than 1. However, Twilight flipped the chalkboard over, revealing a similar drawing, only this time the pony beside the lever was Applejack, and the single pony on the branching path was Apple Bloom. Twilight smiled at the gathered ponies. Who would pull the lever now? Starlight raised her hoof and every pony glared at her. What? She asked. Starlight, that's Apple Bloom, Applejack shouted. Who? My sister. Oh. Starlight lowered her hoof. Twilight nodded to herself. Applejack, would you care to explain your change of heart? Well, family comes first after all, Applejack nodded. But are you not then responsible for the death of the 5 ponies on the other track? Twilight asked. No, not like I tied 'em up. Right then, Starlight, earlier you said that if you do nothing, the other 5 die through your inaction, Twilight said. Yeah, true, Starlight responded. And you would let the other 5 die to save a pony you know? Yep. Starlight leaned back in her chair. Wow, that's cold, Rainbow said. I think it's rather touching that Starlight would kill 5 ponies to save Apple Bloom, Rarity said. Twilight shuffled uncomfortably a bit as she spoke. Anyways, most ponies, even after saying they would pull the lever and let 1 stranger die, wouldn't pull the lever if some pony they know would die. This is because the life of a friend or family member is worth more to them than the 5 strangers, even though the 5 lives is worth more than 1, What about you, Twilight? Starlight asked. Twilight straightened her posture. I have actually given this some thought. As princess, it's my duty to remain impartial, and no matter who was on the other track, it is my obligation to save as many ponies as possible. Well, okay then, Rainbow Dash scoffed. Looking around, Twilight could see the disappointment on her friends' faces. Really, Twilight? Fluttershy deadpanned at her. What? Twilight asked. I mean, I would have left that lever alone if it was you on the other track, Twi, but now I ain't so sure. Applejack sounded disappointed. Some princess of friendship, Starlight said disapprovingly. And here I thought we were all friends, darling. Rarity flicked her head away from Twilight. We are friends, and as my friends I would expect any of you to do the same to me, Twilight retorted. I can't believe you wouldn't kill 5 ponies to save me. Fluttershy sounded on the verge of tears as she spoke. What? I can't believe we're even discussing this. Of course I wouldn't kill 5 innocent ponies to save you, Twilight yelled in disbelief. Fluttershy then actually began crying, and Rainbow had to put a hoof around her in comfort. Twilight reached out a hoof. Fluttershy, Rarity slapped Twilight across the cheek, but since she has hooves instead of hands, she basically just punched her in the face. Then she shouted, I think you've done enough! Yeah, Rainbow added helpfully. What the? It's hypothetical! Next day. And now they're all ignoring me over a stupid thought experiment. Can you believe that? Derpy nodded her head. I really do sympathise with you, Twilight, but I actually deliver mail to the entire town, and I'm running really late because of this. She made a move to step out of the castle doorway, but Twilight kept talking. Every pony agreed that it's morally correct to pull the lever. But when I want to pull the lever, they're all, oh Twilight, how can you be so cruel? The hypocrisy! Twilight! Pinkie Pie dropped in from the ceiling, scaring the daylights out of both ponies, and giving Derpy the perfect excuse to flee at high speeds. Pinkie, I'm so glad to see you, Twilight sounded relieved. There's no time, Twilight! Quick, teleport us to longitude 27.56, latitude minus 69.28. Why? What's going on? What part of no time was unclear? Twilight lit her horn, and with a pop, the two of them reappeared in the middle of nowhere. There was a grassy field around them on all sides, and the two of them were standing beside a railroad track, and right beside them was a lever. There's a train coming down the tracks, Twilight, and there's 5 ponies tied to the rails. What do we do? Pinkie shouted directly in Twilight's face. Twilight frowned. Is this a prank? Is that what this is? No, look! Pinkie passed Twilight a pair of binoculars she just sort of had, and Twilight took a look down the track. Sure enough, tied to the track were 5 ponies, all struggling to break loose. Now look on the other track! Pinkie almost screamed. Twilight looked, and to her horror, she could see Spike all alone tied to the other track. Right now, the train is on course to run over those 5 ponies, but if we pull that lever there, then it will change course and run over Spike. Oh, Twilight, this is horrible! Pinkie dramatically fell over. Twilight began sweating. Okay, this is fine. Pinkie, you pull the lever, I'll fly over there and untie Spike. You can't. There's some sort of wall of psychic energy keeping us away. I'll teleport. You can't teleport past it. I'll go stop the train then. You need to pass the barrier to do that. I'll make a spell to destroy the barrier. There's no time, Twilight. The train will be here in 30 seconds. Pinkie screamed. Sure enough, Twilight could feel the rumble as the train drew nearer to the fork. She could see it now, plumes of smoke billowing from the locomotive. Twilight was pretty much having a panic attack. She was hyperventilating and fanning her face with her wings, trying to calm down. I can do this! Pinkie, you decide! She turned to find Pinky attempting to tie herself to the tracks. Pinky! A giant timer appeared in the sky, slowly counting down from 10. Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! And then everything was suddenly on fire. I can't! Twilight shut her eyes and huddled up on the floor. Suddenly everything stopped. Twilight cracked open her eye to find Princess Luna standing over her. Oh, this is a dream. That makes sense. Twilight chuckled, but Luna didn't seem nearly as amused. The field they were in slowly faded away until the two of them were alone in an endless white expanse. Twilight Sparkle, we are not too proud to admit that we have no idea what this is supposed to mean. Wouldst thou kindly explain the nature of this nightmare? Luna calmly asked. Twilight then spent some time explaining the details of her thought experiment, followed by yesterday's events, which of course led her to her current distress and her friend's irritation with her. Luna followed along as best as she could, saving most of her questions until the end. When Twilight's story was finished, Luna pondered all she had heard and asked a simple question. Is there any reason why we cannot stop the trolley? Several hours later, in dream time, so about 3 minutes of real time. We understand now. It would seem that you owe thine friends an apology, Twilight Sparkle. I know I upset them, but how is it unreasonable to say that you wouldn't let 5 innocent ponies die to save them? Twilight grumbled. Indeed, it is only 5 after all, a small price to pay. It may be difficult, but in the past we have slain countless innocents to protect those dear to us. Wait, what? It was more socially acceptable at the time. Twilight scratched her head. So you're saying I should be willing to let innocent ponies die to save my friends? Yes. That's sort of messed up. It is. Although perhaps you should not have breached the topic to begin with if you were not prepared for the consequences. Also, you could have just lied, to not sound like a tool. Luna stood up and stretched. Our work here is done. Fare thee well, Twilight Sparkle. She then turned around and walked away, eventually fading out of sight. I think I know how to fix this now, Twilight exclaimed to herself, alone within the endless expanse of her own mind. The next day, for real this time, Rainbow Dash, Fluttershy, Applejack, Rarity and Starlight Glimmer had all received a correspondence early in the morning requesting their presence on the train platform at 9:15. They had all arrived at relatively the same time to find Twilight Sparkle waiting there, standing in front of a curtain with a sheepish grin on her face. Every pony, thanks for coming here. I just wanted to say that I'm sorry and that I was wrong. I hurt all of you with what I said and I really shouldn't have. You all mean more to me than the entire world and I would have made that clear. So let me prove it to you. Twilight finished her introduction and turned around, pulling away the curtain to reveal that off in the distance, 5 ponies were tied to the railroad track. Branching off on another track, the group could see Pinkie Pie, also tied up, waving at them enthusiastically and with a big grin on her face. Twilight turned back to the group with an eerie smile. The 5 of them suddenly became acutely aware of the broken lever beside Twilight. Now, at 9:20, the Friendship Express is scheduled to arrive at the station. A Darling Little Secret by Gusto Starstorm. It had initially been a simple trip to Canterlot, meant to stock up on some niche accoutrements for her own Nightmare Night costume. In previous years she had been swamped with orders, as every pony in Ponyville needed a costume. Rarity was often working herself so hard that she rarely partook in the festivities. This year, however, she was ahead of schedule, in part because none of her friends had put in orders. To be fair, one had said they would, but that did not come to fruition. After last year's Nightmare Night was over, the daredevil among them had realised she'd gotten a hole in her Shadow Bolt costume. Naturally, Rarity had offered to patch it up, and even offered to make it better for next year. At the time, Rainbow Dash had seemed so enthusiastic about it. Yet here it was, 1 year later with only a week before Nightmare Night, and she had been nowhere to be found around Ponyville. Nobody had seen Rainbow Dash at all outside of her work hours. Unusually for her, she seemed to be keeping to herself lately, and no pony knew why. Thus, as Rarity made her own way down Restaurant Row, what she thought she had seen had stopped her dead in her tracks. Sitting there, at a cafe with some of Twilight's old Canterlot friends, was a cyan pony with rainbow-coloured hair. But there was something so off about this scene that Rarity found herself doing a double take. Unfortunately, during said double take, she was spotted. "Oh, Rarity!" Minuet called out, waving to the alabaster unicorn. "What are you doing here?" "Greetings, Minuet," Rarity said, trotting over to the table. "Forgive me for staring, darling. I thought I saw some pony I knew." "It's alright," Lemon Hearts told her before sipping her tea. "We were just hanging out with our new friend, Rainbow Gleam." Rainbow Gleam? Taking a cursory glance to her left, Rarity saw the eerily familiar pony. However, upon closer inspection, the differences quickly became clearer. For starters, before her Saturn Earth pony, lacking the wings of her dear friend and possessing a different cutie mark, her mane as well was far more well kept, and almost reminded Rarity of her own in a way. Various shades of pink, orange, yellow, green and blue coming together to form a simply heavenly look. This was a pony who took care of herself, and Rarity could see that. Still though, something about those magenta eyes. "Hello there, darling," the pony known as Rainbow Gleam finally said. "It is nice to meet you." A small smile graced Rarity's face. Rainbow Gleam certainly seemed polite. "Charmed," the unicorn said. "Are you new in town? I fear I've never seen you around Canterlot before." "I am indeed. The last few weeks have been utterly dreadful for me, so I have been looking for a change of scenery." Rainbow Gleam took a sip of her tea, then gestured to Minuet. "Luckily for me, I met this lovely darling who took a liking to me immediately. We've been meeting up for tea every day for the past week." "Speaking of," Twinkle-Shine interjected, "do you want to join us, Rarity? We've got an open spot. Moondancer had to dip out early, unfortunately." The fashionista nodded. "I think I can make a moment, girls. This would be a good chance to let me know how far your costumes are coming anyhow." "How darling of you!" Rainbow Gleam cheered. "You're a costume designer." "Fashion in general," Rarity corrected. "But around Nightmare Night, I'll usually take up the challenge of designing costumes for every pony. It's a rather lovely change of pace." "Sounds like it. I do appreciate a well-crafted design myself." Rarity let out a small giggle of delight. From the little they have talked, Rainbow Gleam seemed like some pony she would get along with well. It would be nice to spend some time with another pony who appreciated fashion like she did. And yet, when their eyes met again, something still seemed off. That familiar magenta seemed to be toying with Rarity far too much. something wrong, darling? Asked Rainbow Gleam. Well, forgive my asking this out of nowhere, but you wouldn't happen to have a relative named Rainbow Dash, would you? Pegasus? Has a similarly multicolored mane? Gleam's initial reaction was shock. That much Rarity could tell. But then, an eager minuet only added to the issue. Oh hey, you're right, the blue unicorn exclaimed. They do kinda look alike, don't they? Yeah, but the way they act is night and day, Lemon Heart said idly. No offense to Rainbow Dash, of course. She's very cool and all. I just don't see her hanging out somewhere like this, you know? The clear discomfort on Rainbow Gleam's face made Rarity wince. If she were to wager, this was a bit of a touchy subject to the Earth Pony. A theory began to crystallize in her mind, but instead of voicing it, she decided to take a different angle. Well, never mind that, dear, Rarity said out of nowhere. Silly me and my little notions. Tell you what, Rainbow Gleam, if you like, you could join me on getting some supplies. I'll need to get back to Ponyville soon to finish the girls' costumes. Oh, yes, I would love to, darling, Rainbow Gleam said, a nervous smile visible. Forgive me, girls, not that this hasn't been fun, but I think I will join Rarity on a little shopping spree. Well, alright, Minuet answered, offering the warmest smile she could muster. I hope you'll think about joining us though. Nightmare Night in Ponyville is so much fun. I will consider it. For now, though, I shall bid you adieu. And without another word, the two fashion-savvy ponies left, heading away from Restaurant Row. However, during the walk back, something kept bugging Rarity, and one look at Rainbow Gleam only furthered that feeling. She had to say something. Rainbow Gleam, I am so sorry for putting you on the spot there. I didn't mean to upset you like I clearly did. For a bit, Gleam did not answer, her downtrodden expression saying it all. Rarity had clearly hit a sore subject, and that certainly did make the walk a bit awkward. And yet, she still couldn't help but theorise. Had Gleam and Dash had a falling out in the past? Well, it was none of her business, she reasoned. If Gleam wanted to tell her, then she would tell her. Rarity, darling, Gleam eventually spoke up. You were curious if I had a cousin named Rainbow Dash, right? The unicorn nodded, and Rainbow Gleam took a deep breath in. She looked Rarity in the eyes and smiled. The next thing that came out of Gleam's mouth, though, shocked Rarity to her core. It's that convincing, huh? She said, losing the accent and sounding slightly raspier than before. Remind me to thank Twilight later, will ya? Stunned silence was Rarity's only answer. You're not about to freak out on me, are you, Rare? Without a single word, Rarity's eyes practically bored into her friend from how utterly flabbergasted she was. The silence was getting to be too much, and Rainbow Gleam winced worriedly. Rarity, please, if you're going to scream, could you not? I don't want to cause a scene in the middle of town. That seemed to get the fashionista's attention, as she blinked a couple of times before shaking her head, taking in a deep breath to try to steady her nerves. Rarity quietly said the first thing that came to mind. Is that really you, Rainbow Dash? The pony in question giggled, whispering in kind. Pretty good disguise, right? Twilight made a little spell for me, though I did style my mane myself. How'd you like it? Well, it's quite fetching indeed, Rarity admitted, but that's hardly the point. You're telling me Twilight has been transforming you into an Earth Pony so you can go to tea with Minuet and company here in Canterlot? Dash shrugged. I mean, I've been doing other stuff too, like I bought this really pretty dress yesterday. I should show it to you. I think you'll like it. Oh, and you're buying dresses too? Asked the unicorn incredulously. Why do you sound so upset, Rarity? I thought you'd be excited about this. Under normal circumstances, I would be. However, I fear I'm just a tad confused about this whole thing. I've never known you to be so much like you. Silence fell between them for a few seconds, but Rainbow Dash didn't let it last long. Rarity, have you ever felt like you're not so good at showing ponies every part of you? That got the unicorn's undivided attention. Whatever do you mean, darling? Well, Rainbow looked away, lightly sighing before she continued. I know what other ponies think of me. Everyone sees Rainbow Dash and thinks sporty, daring, rough and tumble, right? And don't get me wrong, I totally get it. I'm awesome. It's not like that's a front or nothing. I just kind of wish I was better at expressing this other part of me. The girl who sometimes likes a good dress, who'd love to have tea and talk with a little more, poshness, I guess. The word you're looking for is class, Rarity interjected, but I believe I do understand what you're saying. Well, anyway, I went to Twilight and she gave me a little spell to help me do that. I've been having so much fun with it that I've been using it pretty much every chance I got. The two made their way to a small fountain. Rarity sat down by it, deep in contemplation. In the span of only a few minutes, she had gotten the answers to several questions she'd initially had, and a few she didn't even realize she wanted to ask, as well as a small, unanswered one, which she voiced immediately. Why the name Rainbow Gleam, if you don't mind me asking? Well, other than wanting to keep a part of myself while doing this, the disguised Pegasus propped her head up proudly. It's a little something Try taught me about espionage. It wasn't enough for me to look different or have a different name, I had to act differently too. So I tried to act like... Me? Rarity asked, a knowing grin on her face. Even copied one of my verbal tics, it seemed. Hey, cut me some slack. It was either that or dashing, and I thought that would have been too obvious. The mares shared a laugh at that, before falling back to their thoughts. In this new silence, Rarity continued to contemplate the situation, now that she'd had a chance to digest the new information. So, Rainbow Dash had a secret, and Twilight was in on it. The mare liked fashion, at least to some degree, and enjoyed acting like a refined lady from time to time. All of what they knew of Rainbow Dash was true. She was still the brave and daring stunt flyer every pony loved, but she was also this pony. And yet, Rainbow felt the need to disguise herself and travel to Canterlot in order to express this. She didn't feel comfortable doing so back in Ponyville. Rarity's heart went out to a friend, thinking about that. It could be difficult to go against others' perceptions of oneself, and it seemed Rainbow sometimes wanted to go far against Pony's view of her. Rarity wanted to help. She had to help. Rainbow Dash, have you ever considered doing this in Ponyville? A couple of times, yeah, Dash answered. Why? Well, I just had a thought, dear. What if you went as this side of yourself for Nightmare Night? Looking up, Rarity could see the shock in her friend's eyes, but from experience, she could tell it was not the bad kind of shock. This was simply being blindsided by a question, but it was clear that the Pegasus was considering it. Well, I mean, do you think I could get away with that? Asked Rainbow Dash, her voice tinged with, if it were any other pony, Rarity would have thought it to be trepidation. I mean, I know every pony dresses up on Nightmare Night, but I bet it'd be a shock for all our friends. Let them be shocked then. It's all in good fun, is it not? Rainbow Dash looked to the ground, clearly deep in thought. Then after a few seconds, she turned her head slightly and put on an easygoing smile. I will need to dress for such a lovely occasion, Dash said, slipping back into her alter ego. Would you be willing to make me one, Rarity, darling? To that, Rarity smiled. I would be honoured to, Rainbow Gleam. This was it, the big night. As Rarity made her way out to the festival, She took great care in her steps so as to keep her blue pinstripe suit pristine. She looked into the reflection of a nearby window, adjusting her mask for the final time before finally heading out. This would be her first nightmare night in a while, and the unicorn intended to have a good time. As she reached the facilities, her eyes wandered, eagerly searching the crowds for a certain Pegasus. But try as she may, Rarity could not find Rainbow Dash. Unfortunate too, as the two of them had worked very closely to finish her costume on time. She was quite eager to see the reactions from every pony. Oh, it's fine, Rarity reminded herself. She probably just got caught up in making sure her hair was perfect. She will be here, I hope. A small twinge of dread formed in the pit of Rarity's stomach at the prospect of Rainbow Dash not going through with it. Of course, it was her friend's call in the end, but still. Nightmare Night was supposed to be a time of delight after all, and Rarity wanted nothing more than for her friends to be delighted. Rarity! Turning around so fast as to risk whiplash, the unicorn's excitement was slightly dashed upon seeing it wasn't her rainbow-haired friend. Only slightly, however, as instead she was greeted by four similarly familiar faces. Ah, Minuet! Exclaimed Rarity. Lemon Hearts, Twinkle Shine, and you must be Moon Dancer, correct? The bespectacled unicorn nodded, adjusting her glasses. It's nice to finally meet some of Twilight's other friends. You're Rarity, right? Indeed I am. And if you're looking to meet Twilight's friends, you shan't be disappointed, dear. Why, even her friend Sunset Shimmer's making the trip to be here. Oh, I remember her, said Twinkle Shine. And she's friends with Twilight, huh? Sounds like she's changed for the better. Hopefully she'll like our get-up. Hey, yeah, Minuet exclaimed, pulling out her fencing foil via magic. Thanks again, Rarity. These three Buccaneers get-up are the best costumes we could have ever gone with. I wish you would have joined us, Moony, Lemonheart said. There was a fourth Buccaneer after all. Yeah, well, I didn't want to force you guys to spend money on me, Moondancer admitted, looking away in embarrassment. This is my first Nightmare Night in years. Oh, we wouldn't have minded, Minuet insisted, but we do like your costume all the same. Rarity nodded. It is quite the fetching librarian costume, my dear. Upon hearing that, Moondancer looked as though she'd just been insulted. Librarian? Ah! No, it's not a librarian, it's A.K. Yearling, darling, author of the Daring Do books. The five unicorns all froze at hearing this new voice, but for very different reasons. Rarity was the first to turn her attention to the newcomer, hoping that her instinct was, in fact, correct. And sure enough, it was. Sauntering over to the party was every pony's favourite Pegasus, Rainbow Dash, grabbing the attention of those she had passed with her outfit. Though, not that Rarity could blame them. Tonight, her friend looked like a completely different pony. One with her mane brushed and styled to the side, wearing a deep blue sequin dress and a beautiful necklace embedded with a single emerald. And Rarity couldn't keep the smile off her face as she saw her. Oh, silly me, Rarity said. How could I forget the author of my dear friend's favourite books? All is forgiven, Rainbow Dash told her. It's quite a lovely little get-up, darling. Moondancer looked away, flustered by the compliment. Well, thanks. It was kind of a last-minute thing. I couldn't even remember the spell to get my glasses the right shade of red. Oh, pish-posh, Rainbow Dash answered, ignoring the shocked expressions of the other three unicorns. Moondancer, was it? Regardless of the little details, you look utterly dashing. And if you've gone through the effort of dressing like her, am I right to guess you're a fan as well? I am, yeah, Moondancer told her. I didn't think you would be as well. No offense. None taken, darling. Though why would I be offended by that? Well, I mean, I've heard a lot about you from Twilight and the girls, and Moondancer didn't get to finish the thought, as a light giggle came from Rainbow Dash. Trust me when I say this, there's far more to every pony than what she shows every pony else. Yeah, I suppose there would be. Throughout this whole exchange, Rarity had been sparing passing glances at the three buccaneers, checking them for their reaction. But as that line hung in the air, there was a change. First it was Twinkleshine, eyes going a bit wider, followed by Lemonheart, who raised her hoof to her chin in deep contemplation. And last, but certainly not least, was Minuet. That knowing grin on her face said it all. Well, regardless, Rainbow Dash continued, it's wonderful to meet another pony with good taste, and since I've not seen your face around here, am I right to assume this is your first Nightmare Night in Ponyville? Moondancer nodded. Well, you're in luck, Moondancer, exclaimed Rainbow. Rarity and I know where all the best booths at the festival are. Stick with us and we'll ensure you have a darling night. Aha! All eyes turned to Minuet, who looked as though she'd just uncovered some great secret. In typical Minuet fashion, she bounced forward, meeting the Pegasus's face, and before Rainbow Dash could get a word in edgewise, she found herself wrapped up in a warm embrace. You did decide to join us after all, huh? Rainbow Dash smiled. Suppose the jig is up then. It's delightful to see you all again. Right back at you, Rainbow Gleam, Lemonheart said knowingly. Definitely explains the vague feeling of unicorn magic around you. Though definitely still happy. That line sent a twinge of guilt through Rainbow Dash. Looking to the ground, she took in a deep breath, contemplating what to say. Eventually though, she just spoke her mind. Listen girls, she told them, dropping the accent. I'm real sorry about lying to you. It's just I'm not really good at sharing this side of myself with others. Tonight's the first time I've done it in Ponyville. And even then, it's Nightmare Night. It's just a costume to every pony else. Then we'll show everyone else this other side of you together. Moondancer's confidence caught every pony's attention, Rainbow Dash especially. The determined glint in her bespectacled eyes could have cut through diamond. Rainbow Dash, I sympathise, she said, a soft smile on her face. I know how hard it can be to put yourself out there. I did it once, and when it didn't go exactly how I wanted, I retreated inward. I regret that now, but it's taught me a few things. I haven't known you very long, but I wanted to help you with this, and I know the girls feel the same. This is a first for both of us, so let's make this Nightmare Night the best one we can. Silence was Rainbow Dash's only answer initially, but after a few seconds, as if letting the idea hang in the air, the Pegasus met her new friend's smile with one of her own. Sounds wonderful, darling, she answered, slipping back into her gleam side. I think I shall take you up on that offer. After all, Nightmare Night is always more fun with friends. I concur, Rarity chimed in. Now, what do you say we go find the others? Probably easiest to start off with our friends, then work our way up to those outside the group. Good plan, Rarity, said Minuet. Oh, let's start with Twilight then. I don't know about you, but I'd like to meet Sunset Shimmer again. It's been years. You go ahead then. Rainbow Dash and I will catch up. Taking that advice, the Unicorn Quartet headed towards the festivities. When they were out of earshot, Rarity and Rainbow Dash shared a contented sigh. Thanks again for doing this for me, Rare, Dash said. I'm so glad I went through with this. As am I. For a second, I was worried you might back out. Heh, I'll admit, I did have to give myself a pep talk before I left the house. Well, whatever got you to come, I'm so proud of you for doing this, darling. A small smile graced Rainbow's face as she and Rarity began heading in the direction of their other friends. Together, they would have a wonderful Nightmare Night, that much was for sure. The first step was taken, and there was no going back now. Not that either of them particularly wanted to go back. Though, Rainbow Dash did remember one thing she did want. Before I forget, she said, I've been meaning to ask, What exactly is your costume, Rarity? The alabaster unicorn let out a small chuckle. You remember that time I met Sunset Shimmer? Well, during that trip, she introduced me to something called Team Fortress 2. Hanirika by Shakespeare Calise. Applejack ducked in and out from between the stalls in the marketplace, looking from one to the next with increased desperation. Come on, something, anything! Barely looking where she was going, the orange earth pony collided with Fluttershy. Applejack, what's wrong? Fluttershy asked, seeing her friend in a frenzied tizzy. It's Big Mac, Applejack said. I'm his heart-warming helper this year. He already knows exactly what to get for me, but he's impossible to shop for. It's not like he ever says what he wants. It's almost heart-warming Eve, and I still haven't found anything for him. I'm sure he will love whatever you give him, the yellow Pegasus assured her. You could just give him an apple, and I'm sure he would love it. But he'll just think I'm re-gifting the one he gave me last. Oh wait, you were joking. Well, what did you get for your brother this year? She asked. Oh, Zephyr was easy. I got him this copy of Wonderbolts Illustrated with a 3-page fold-out spread of Rainbow Dash signed by her. Fluttershy looked around nervously. I didn't even tell her it's for him. Fluttershy turned to put the magazine back into her saddlebag. That was when she noticed that her cutie mark was glowing. Oh dear! Looks like the map is calling you, Applejack said. Fluttershy looked at Applejack. Her flank was glowing too. It looks like it's calling you as well, she said. Dang it, why now? Applejack griped. It's almost heartwarming. I ain't got time for this. But Applejack, it means that some pony is having a friendship problem right now. We have to help save the holiday for them. Alright, come on. Applejack and Fluttershy trotted briskly to Twilight Sparkle's castle. They arrived at Twilight's castle to find Twilight going full Twily nanas, rushing around the castle, making last-minute preparations. Oh, hey, what are you two doing here? She asked. It's not heartwarming day already, is it? Spike, was I up all night again? What day is it? Yup, full Twily nanas, Spike groaned. Actually, we're here because of these, Applejack said, as she and Fluttershy pointed to their glowing flanks. Oh my gosh! Twilight gasped, trotting along with them to the map room. They looked at where their cutie marks were hovering. Oh, it's sending you two back to Perilous Peaks again. The Kirin Village? Fluttershy said. An autumn blaze? Applejack said. Why, I haven't seen her in ages. You don't think Rainshine made them go through the stream of silence again, do you? Fluttershy asked nervously. Or they all turned into Nyrics and burned their village down again? I don't think so, Applejack said. At least, I hope not. She quickly did some fancy mathematics in her head. Well, whatever it is, hopefully we can get there quickly, solve it, and get back in time for heartwarming. Maybe you can find something for Big Mac while you're there, Fluttershy said. Just get him an apple, Twilight said. Why does every pony keep saying that? Applejack asked. Well, whatever it is, just make sure it's something good, Twilight said, because the one time you mess up, he'll go off and marry some pony, and you won't even find out about the wedding until you get an invitation in the mail. You might tell him you forgive him, but deep down you never really let something like that go. Try. Mac is already married to Sugar Belle, Applejack reminded her. I knew that, Twilight said. They both looked at Fluttershy. Oh, don't worry, I got Zephyr the perfect present, Fluttershy said. We don't have to worry about Sunbear marrying him this year. They all laughed, even Spike. We should get going as soon as possible, Applejack said to Fluttershy. I'm gonna run home and grab some things and let them know I'll be out of town. I'll meet you at the train station. After trotting across town, Fluttershy entered her cottage with haste and was immediately paralysed with anxiety, drawing a complete blank on what she should pack for the trip. Is something troubling you? Discord asked from the couch, making Fluttershy shriek as she turned around in shock. Oh, Discord! I thought you were going to Manhattan for the midnight release of Ogres and Obulettes 5th edition, Fluttershy said. Yes. It is a few hours away by train, Discord said, looking at his bare wrist where a watch would be if he wore one. But I can get there in a snap. He snapped his fingers, and his packed travel bag appeared beside him on the living room floor. Oh, well, I need to pack a bag myself, Fluttershy said. The map called me back to Perilous Peaks. Discord raised an eyebrow. With Applejack? He asked. Yes, like last time, she answered as she looked in her refrigerator for her clothes to pack. Seems like a good opportunity if you ask me, he said. Fluttershy realised that her clothes were not in the refrigerator. Also, his words finally registered. Wait, opportunity? To finally tell her. Discord? I told you, Fluttershy, I'm not jealous. You are and always have been my very dearest friend. But I know that is all we will ever be, and I'm fine with that. But you deserve to have a special sun pony. Discord, please, Fluttershy sighed. She doesn't even have any idea how I feel about her. Shame on you, Fluttershy, he scolded. You do her a disservice with such an assumption. Just because she's better at masking her feelings than you doesn't mean she doesn't have every bit of your intuition. But isn't she dating Rainbow Dash? Fluttershy asked. Is that a fact? Discord asked. Well, I don't know for sure, she said. It wouldn't hurt to ask, would it? Seems rude, she said. It's not really any of my business, is it? If you're interested in her, isn't it? He asked. Discord snapped his fingers. Fluttershy's packed saddlebags appeared on her haunches. I packed you an extra scarf and sweater. Dress warm. I hear Perilous Peaks is expecting a cold snap in the coming days. At Sweetapple Acres, Applejack quickly packed her own bag. So, hopefully we can finish our friendship mission and make back in time for hearthwarming, she explained to Big Macintosh and Sugar Bell. Be sure to let Apple Bloom know when she gets home.
Actually,
Big Mac started to say. Apple Bloom is staying with her special sun pony for the holiday, Sugar Bell said. Wait, what? Applejack sputtered. When were you all gonna tell me this? She asked.
Now-ish,
Mac said. They have been dating for a while now, Sugar reminded her, and she is a grown mare. Applejack grumbled something about traditionalism and sighed as she grabbed the last of her things for her travel bag. Well, if I'm not back in time, tell her I said, happy hearthwarming. We will, Sugar assured her. On the train ride to Perilous Peaks, Applejack was still hung up on thinking about what to get her brother for hearthwarming. Look, I just don't get why every pony keeps telling me to just get him an apple. Applejack huffed. We live and work on an apple orchard. He can get himself as many apples as he wants. It's the thought that counts, isn't it? Fluttershy asked. It is, Applejack agreed, and I want to show him I thought about more than just apples. Have you talked to Rainbow Dash about it? Fluttershy asked. Not particularly, no. Why do you ask? Applejack asked. Perspective? Fluttershy tried. Applejack seemed unconvinced. I don't know. I just figured she'd be the first pony you'd ask about anything. Well, why do you say that? Applejack asked. Isn't she your special sun pony? Fluttershy asked. Applejack laughed out loud. I'm sorry, Fluttershy apologized. I didn't mean to presume. No, it ain't that, Sugar Cube, Applejack said. I suppose I can see how you might get that idea about us. But me and Dash are, well, we ain't romantic, not with each other. Don't get me wrong, we love each other, but not like that. Well, what is it like? Fluttershy asked. I suppose it's more like a bromance with us, if mares can have that, Applejack said. If that makes sense. No, I understand, Fluttershy said. Discord and I are the same way. We're really close friends, but we're not romantic partners either. So, you don't have a mare friend, a special sun pony then? Fluttershy asked. No special sun pony, mare or stallion, Applejack answered. Not yet, anyway. The train slowed to a stop at Perilous Peaks, prompting Applejack to change the subject. Alright, we're here. Let's get it done and get home double quick. With the experience from their prior trip, Applejack and Fluttershy found the hidden passage to the Kirin village without any difficulty. The squirrels that had caught Fluttershy's attention before were nowhere to be found this time, likely hibernating for the season. Without the chatter of woodland creatures, their approach to the village was a quiet one. But that changed once they arrived. The Kirin village was a bustling den of conversations in the courtyard marketplace. Standing head and shoulders above the others, Rainshine saw the approach of the familiar outsiders. Applejack, Fluttershy, welcome back, she greeted enthusiastically. Hello again, Applejack replied. I wish I could say this was just a social call, but the map sent us back here. Do you know if any pony is having a friendship problem? Fluttershy asked. Rainshine rolled her eyes. You won't have to look far. Come with me. She waved for them to follow her into the main square. They followed her and the crowd of Kirin parted for Rainshine. As the tallest Kirin, she was the de facto leader, much like the pony hierarchy. As they got closer, Applejack recognized a particular voice above the rest of the din. Applejack! Autumn Blaze called out with an enthusiastic wave. The Kirin rushed over and hugged her super hard. Autumn? Applejack wheezed. Personal space, we talked about this. Oh, right, sorry, she apologized. I'm just super excited to see you again. You too, Fluttershy. Hello, we're here about another friendship problem, Fluttershy said. Oh, that would probably be Fernflare, Autumn said, pointing at the Kirin behind her. No, it's Autumn that's the problem, Fern said. Yup, I'd say we found it, Applejack muttered to Fluttershy. Alright, you two, what seems to be the problem? It's not really a problem per se, Autumn said, leading them to her home. After you two were here last time, I was curious about Equestria, so I did a bit of travelling to learn about all the things pony and bring it back to my village. She opened the door to her house built into a tree. I got my old place back when I rejoined the village, and my couch was even still here. But that's not the best part. Look! Autumn showed them around the inside of her home. I have the whole place decorated for heartswarming. It was true. She had the whole home trimmed to the nines with heartswarming decor. The front door had a wreath. There was a heartswarming tree, presents and festive ribbons. Even the halls were decked with bows of holly. On a second glance outside, it became obvious that Autumn's was the only home decorated as such. Oh, yeah, the other Kirin haven't really warmed up to the idea yet, Autumn explained. They have their own thing, but I just love the tale of heartswarming, the compelling story about the three tribes overcoming their differences and coming together in the magic of friendship. Autumn held up her copy of A Heartswarming Tale. I've read this book like 100 times. I read it for them too. but they don't seem to find it as interesting. You said they have their own thing? Fluttershy asked. What's that? Oh, they still celebrate Hanukkah, Autumn said. Hanukkah? Would you like to tell us about it? Applejack asked. I'd rather sing la 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 la. The Kirans celebrate Hanukkah and not hearts warming. It lasts 8 days instead of 1, it's really kinda charming. Long ago in days of old, in the midst of winter cold, Wendigos all filled the skies, or so that's what we're told. My happy village huddled close around a tiny fire, but the flames went out, they were about to all quickly expire. One Kiran that had had enough of hiding in her shame, uncaged in rage they were aflame, salvation quickly came. They all made it through the night, but one was not enough. The storm went on for 1 week more, those 8 days and nights were rough. No Nirik had ever burned for more than 1 day at a time, but on she went, though her rage was spent. That's why we sing this rhyme. But Wendigo stayed in the sky until the 3 tribes came together in the magic of friendship. No, we can't forget the Nirik that saved her village from the cold, but it's the story part that maybe we could skip. Really, I was just trying to tell them that the real heroes were the ponies that banished the Wendigos, Autumn said. Well, I know how important tradition can be, Applejack said, so I can't really blame them for wanting to keep theirs. Maybe we should learn more about how Hanukkah is celebrated, Fluttershy suggested. Autumn shrugged. If you want, I'm sure my neighbour Fernflare would be happy to teach you. They stepped back outside. There were already snow flurries starting to fall as they walked over to Fern's home. Autumn knocked on her door. Hello again, Fern, Autumn greeted. Hello, Autumn. What can I do for you? My pony friends wanted to learn about Hanukkah, and I told them you were the Kiran to ask. Oh, really? Fern grinned. Oh, don't be so smug. They're just curious. It's not like they're planning on converting. Come on inside, Fern said. I was just about to make dinner. I'll put out some extra plates. Autumn gasped. Oh my gosh, yes! You guys must be hungry from your trip. I don't want to be a bother. I'm fine, Fluttershy said, her stomach audibly objected. I insist, Fern said, waving them in. I hope you like hay burgers. Love 'em, Applejack said as they all sat down. Fern worked in the kitchen for a short while and then came into the dining room with a couple serving plates. Applejack looked at the hay burger on her plate. It was just a plain patty between 2 thin slabs of hard bread. Looks like your bread forgot to rise, Applejack said. Can I get a slice of cheese for mine? What? Fern gasped. You can't have cheese together with your hay burger? Why not? Applejack asked. Because it's against the rules, Fern said. Okay, but why though? Applejack asked. Because, actually the scriptures were never really clear about the why, Fern admitted. Scriptures? Fluttershy asked. The Hanukkah scrolls, Autumn said. Unfortunately, they were lost with the library in the big village fire when we all went Nirik that one time. Autumn walked into the kitchen to get the cheese. Come on, Fern, the great Kiran created the universe. Do you really think she's going to draw the line in the deli aisle? What kind of goddess would send us to Tartarus for wanting a burger to have a little flavour? It's okay, Autumn, I don't want to be rude, Applejack said, waving it off. I can respect the rules, I was just curious is all. Besides, we're guests here. Suit yourself, Autumn said, slapping a slice of cheese on her own hay burger, earning a glare from Fern. So is Hanukkah celebration like heartswarming? Fluttershy asked. Fern answered. Well, according to Autumn, Hanukkah is a lot like heartswarming. Takes place at the same time, around the winter solace, and there's gift exchange. Autumn interrupted. Yeah, but instead of one good present, you get 8 mediocre presents. Oh, like this one. Autumn grabbed a 4-sided top from Fern's shelf and spun it on the table. Not while we're eating, Fern said. They finished their supper and Applejack helped clear the table. When she and Fern came back from the kitchen, the table was littered with gold coins. What in tarnation? Apparently we're gambling, Fluttershy said. We're gambling for dessert, Autumn cheered. Come on, grab a seat. You too, Fern. Fern rolled her eyes. Don't be like that, you love this game. It's the one cool thing about Hanirika. There are plenty of cool things about Hanirika, Fern said. Her stern expression broke into a grin as she took a seat at the table. But you're right, I do love this game. I don't know how I feel about gambling though, Applejack said. Don't worry, they're not real bits, Autumn said, unwrapping one of the coins to reveal the chocolate inside. It's just for fun. Fern Flare explained the rules, showing them the symbols on each side of the top. You start out putting in the ante, then you spin, and you either get all, nothing, half, or put in more. They played a few rounds. The piles of chocolate coins moved around the table, but Fluttershy seemed to be the one accumulating the most. Autumn might have been winning more, but she was eating into her profits, literally. So, what's the purpose of this? Applejack asked. It's to teach foals about gambling, Autumn said. I really don't think that was the intention, Fern said. I think it's supposed to be a lesson about the unpredictable nature of life and fortune, or something like that. But mostly it's just something to do for 8 nights. We don't really have 8 nights, Applejack said. We have a holiday of our own we need to get back to. Look, I think the two of you are mature enough to still be friends. Autumn wants to explore new cultures, and Fern, you want to keep your traditions alive. Surely you can respect each other's differences and still be friends. Autumn, Blaze and Fern looked each other in the eye before turning their heads their way in unison. Then after a brief pause, Fern let out a sigh and turned towards Autumn Blaze with a hoof outstretched. Yeah, she said, offering a smile, which Autumn Blaze quickly returned, shaking her hoof in agreement. The flanks on Applejack and Fluttershy glowed, signalling a job completed. Whew-wee! Done and done, Applejack said. I think this one was in record time too. Oh, are you guys leaving already? Autumn whined. Unfortunately, Fluttershy said. She's right. We need to get back to Ponyville before. She opened the door and was greeted with an Arctic blast. Snow was already piled up around the base of the doorway, and the wind howled as more snow filled the air to the point that they couldn't even see the homes across the courtyard. Guacamole! Applejack shouted as Fluttershy shut the door again. There's no way we'll be able to get back through the mountain pass in this, Fluttershy said. Looks like we're stuck here for the night, Applejack said. She looked at Fern Flare. I hate to impose. Fern shook her head and shrugged. I wouldn't even have a place to put you. My bed is tiny, and I don't want to make you sleep on the floor. You can crash at my place, Autumn said. My bed is big enough for the both of you, and like I said, I still have my old couch. Well, alright then, Applejack said. We just gotta trudge through the snow to get next door. You think you're up for it, Fluttershy? Fluttershy nodded as she dug through her bag. I'm just glad I packed my extra scarf and sweater. Autumn opened the door and led the way, stepping into the high snow drifts and pressing forward as her friends followed. The simple trip of going back next door to her home was arduous in the snow that was already up to their hips. Autumn Autumn and Applejack frantically dug with their hooves at the snow in front of her door, clearing the way just enough to get it open. The three of them tumbled through, landing in a sprawled pile on the carpet, tired, cold, and wet. Autumn closed the door quickly. "Alright, if you two want to dry off and settle in on the couch, I can get some hot cocoa going," Autumn said. Applejack shook the wet snow out of her fur coat, and Fluttershy brushed herself clean of snow with her wings. Applejack sat on the couch by the fireplace, and Fluttershy sat next to her, keeping her wings spread to dry. Her wing accidentally draped over Applejack's shoulder. "Oh, excuse me," Fluttershy apologised. She moved to pull her wing away. Applejack put her hoof on her wing to keep it where it was. No, it's okay. It's nice. Warm." Applejack leaned closer against Fluttershy. Autumn Blaze returned with a couple mugs of hot cocoa held in her magic. "Here you both go. Be careful, they're hot." Fluttershy held her mug up to her mouth to take a careful sip. Even careful as she was, she still got whipped cream on her nose. Autumn giggled as Fluttershy's eyes crossed, blushing as she looked at the white blob on her snout. Applejack leaned over and gave her nose a chaste flick. Fluttershy blushed a little harder. Autumn turned and opened the chest beside the fireplace, peering inside and looking distraught back at the other two ponies. "Oh no, you guys are gonna hate me. I don't have any firewood." "What do you mean?" Applejack asked. "I meant to get some at the market today, but then you two showed up and I got all distracted." "Oh, this is bad," Autumn whined. "Grr, I always do this. I always screw something up."
This is so infuriating.
Tiny flames briefly appeared at the corners of Autumn's eyes before vanishing again. Fluttershy looked at the reading material on the coffee table. "Are those Power Ponies comics?" she asked. "Oh, these?" Autumn asked. "Yeah, ever since I met you guys, I've been into all things pony. It's part of the reason why I wanted to bring Heartswarming back to the village. Obviously, you can see how well that's not going." "Well, you could just burn these," Fluttershy said of the comics. Autumn scoffed. "What? Are you crazy?" "Well, sure," Fluttershy said. "These are the old comics anyway. The new series is way better." Autumn's eyebrows caught on fire.
You don't mean Power Ponies Go, do you?
She snarled. "No, I mean Power Pony Life," Fluttershy said. Autumn shrieked.
Free!
Applejack whispered. "Fluttershy, are you trying to make her mad?" "Yes," Fluttershy continued. "The best part was when they gave the masked matter horn wings."
You can't just give some pony wings!
Autumn's whole body erupted into flames as she transformed into an angry Nyrick. "Whoa, Nelly!" Applejack shielded her eyes. She could feel the radiating heat coming off the Nyrick's flames.
Take it back!
Autumn screeched. "Okay," Fluttershy said. "Thank you for the warmth." Autumn looked at her flaming self.
I understand what you're doing now.
She calmed down and the flames went out. The cold draft coming off of the window glass returned to chill the room a moment later. Applejack huddled a little closer to Fluttershy. "Keep thinking angry thoughts," Fluttershy suggested. "I don't want to go out of my way to get mad about something," Autumn said. "That's not something a well-adjusted Kieran does." Fluttershy nodded. "What about in the second movie, when they changed Philly Second's voice?" Autumn burst into flames again and yelled.
You can't just change a character's voice!
She screamed.
That's her voice! That's not how we all thought she sounded, and they changed it!
Oh, the weather was so unpleasant, but the Nyrick was incandescent, with Fluttershy fueling hate. It's the gate, it's the gate, it's the gate. Autumn, still a burning Nyrick, laid curled up on the stone hearth in front of the fireplace, stewing in anger over all the things she didn't like about what had happened in her comic series. Being angry was exhausting, but it served to keep her friends warm through the cold night. In the small hours of the morning, Applejack woke up to Fluttershy shivering against her. Autumn was back to being a cold Kieran on a colder stone slab. "Autumn," Applejack said. "Autumn!" Autumn Blaze blinked open her tired eyes and looked at her. What? Humdrum and Radiance are the one true pairing, Applejack said. Autumn grit her teeth and reignited, seething for a couple hours more over Applejack's apparent lack of shipping taste. The mere mention of the 7th Power Pony's name was enough to have Autumn ablaze until dawn, and the storm had passed. The sun came out and melted away enough snow for Applejack and Fluttershy to be able to get back to the train station. They worked together to help carry Autumn to her bed. After being awake all night as a Nyrick, the Kirin had earned a nice long nap through the next day. Just like the story of Hanirika, Fluttershy said. Heh, yeah, Applejack agreed as they tucked their exhausted friend into her bed. I can't imagine anyone doing that for 8 nights though. I guess that's why they're still talking about it 1,000 years later, Fluttershy said. It was miracle. The tip of Autumn's horn burned for a moment and then went out as she groaned.
That pun was awful.
And then she promptly fell asleep. On the train ride back to Ponyville, Applejack laid asleep, slumped against Fluttershy, wrapped in her wing. Fluttershy leaned against the window and watched the landscape go by. She opened her bag for something, and a tiny Discord appeared inside. Did you enjoy that little cold snap? He whispered with a sly grin. That was you? Fluttershy asked, quietly but sternly. We could have froze to death. Discord laughed at Applejack, sleeping curled up inside Fluttershy's wig. It looks like everything worked out, he said. I imagine I'll be extending my trip for another day or so. He winked at her and vanished as a pair of hot cocoa mugs appeared in Fluttershy's hooves. Smells good, Applejack mumbled as she blinked awake a moment later. She sat upright as Fluttershy gave her one. Applejack took a sip. This time it was her turn to get whipped cream on her nose. Fluttershy returned the favour of giving it a quick lick. Are you going to go back to Sweet Apple Acres once we get back to Ponyville? Fluttershy asked. Suppose so, Applejack said, sipping her drink without wearing any more of it. Why? Discord is still at his Owen O convention, Fluttershy said. Didn't you get him a ticket for that for Heartswarming? Applejack asked. Yeah. Oh, shoot! I still didn't get anything for Mac. Fluttershy dug around in her travel bag. All she could find was an apple that she hadn't eaten. You could always give him an apple, she said. He does love apples. I suppose it'll have to do, Applejack said in resignation, accepting the apple as her gift to him. Do you mind coming with me? I can't bear the thought of giving him this by myself. Sure, the fun is on the way home from the train station anyway. Applejack took off her hat and hung her head in shame as she walked into her farmhouse. Well, Mac, I know it ain't much, but happy heartswarming. She placed the apple on the kitchen table. Sugarbell smiled. Oh, Applejack, it's the thought that counts, she said cheerfully. In fact, Sugar looked like she was practically glowing. I think just having the place to ourselves for a night was gift enough. Yep. Big Macintosh sat at the kitchen table with a big goofy grin plastered on his face. Applejack looked back and forth between them, and then behind her through the doorway at Fluttershy standing out there in the front yard, nervously shuffling her hooves. She hadn't mentioned that Discord wouldn't be at the cottage. It was an invitation. Applejack blushed and looked back at the newlyweds. Well, how about another night to yourselves then? Little Shop of Ponies by Sock Puppet.
It all began in this little shop.
Starlight patted the mound of fresh dirt with a shovel. Trixie removed her wizard hat and held it to her chest. Maud and Mudbriar bowed their heads. Trixie levitated out her pocket watch and checked the time. Starlight wondered how the shovel would feel, swung up against Trixie's plant-murdering skull. We commit this loyal companion Phyllis to the earth, although her life was cut short. Starlight glared at Trixie. We will always remember her. Technically, Mudbriar said, a philandrodon isn't male or female, and you should refer to Phyllis as they/them. Starlight walked through Ponyville Farmers Market. Lily Valley waved at her and Starlight walked over. Miss Glimmer, how are you? Honestly, depressed. My philandrodon got murdered. I need a new one. Murdered? The horror! The horror! You have any? No. Hey, Rose. Roseluck emerged from the back of their stand. Miss Starlight needs a potted plant. All I've got is this thing Zecora left with us after Luna's solar eclipse. Starlight raised an eyebrow. Zecora? Okay, how much? Free, said Daisy, carrying a terracotta pot under her foreleg as she too emerged from the back. The other two nodded. The plant was little more than a green shoot, half the height of her horn, and looked like a Venus flytrap. Starlight asked, "Why is it free?" Phyllis too looked bad. Despite being near a window with plenty of sunlight, despite Starlight giving it plenty of water and fertilizer, despite Starlight calling in earth ponies for extended counselling sessions to get their magic near the plant, she still seemed to be withering and drying up. Trixie barged into her office. Trixie requires Starlight's first aid kit. Looking up, Starlight saw that Trixie's nose was bleeding. What happened to you? Trixie caught a frisbee with her face while coaching gym class. Her magic yanked open a drawer and removed a first aid kit. She wiped and dabbed her nose with gauze for a minute, dropped the bloody rags onto Starlight's countertop, and then turned out the door. Your plant is looking better. Starlight looked down. Phyllis too was indeed looking perked up. That was strange. Standing, she trotted across the office to the mess Trixie had left behind before levitating the mess of bloody gauze towards the trash can. A small mewl sounded. Starlight looked around the office. Phyllis too trembled. She levitated the rags far to the left. Phyllis too tilted that direction. She levitated the rags far to the right. Phyllis too followed them in that direction. Starlight smiled. Starlight, no offense, but you look awful, Sunburst said as he sat down across her desk from her. Starlight nodded and sipped coffee. She knew she had black bags under her eyes and her ribs showed through her fur, which was beginning to lose its sheen. You two look like you donated too much blood, Nurse Redheart said, sitting down. Nope, not me, Starlight said. Just been practicing some difficult spells. Really? What spells? Sunburst asked. Nothing illegal, Starlight said unconvincingly. Certainly not reversing alicorns and discord spells. Redheart raised an eyebrow and grunted before looking at her clipboard. Anyway, 30% of your student body has the thunderclap. Have you considered providing condoms? They just use them as water balloons, Sunburst said. Trixie barged in. Wow, Starlight, your new plant looks great. Starlight smiled. Phyllis too was transplanted to a new giant pot and filled an entire corner of her office. Thanks, I figured out what fertilizer it needed. Oh, what does it need? Sunburst asked. Just the right spell, Starlight said, waving a hoof nervously. That's why I look so tired. Rainbow barged in a second later. Hey, the Cozy Glow statue looked like it got depetrified. Any pony know where she went? We need a posse to start a filly hunt. Starlight patted Phyllis too with a hoof.
Feed me.
Phyllis, Starlight said, I can't. I already fed you Cozy, Tyrek, and Chrysalis. You look like a giant Venus flytrap. I would have thought you'd like the Bug Horse Queen.
Don't think, you'll hurt yourself.
Starlight paced around her office, and Celestia has posted guards in the Canterlot Sculpture Gardens, so I can't steal any more political dissidents for you. Trixie barged in. Good news! For Starlight's birthday, Trixie invited Starlight's dad. Starlight whirled around, staring at Trixie in shock. You, what? His letter said he was excited to see his Pumpkin Wumpkin. Hi, Dad, Starlight said, gesturing to one of the chairs in her office and sitting across from him. Wow, that's quite a plant, said her dad. It's so tall, it almost touches the ceiling. Yeah, it had a good meal recently. Am I going to meet your friend Trixie? Or is she your mare friend? Or do you have a cult friend? I wish my Pumpkin Wumpkin would tell me more about what's going on in her life. Did you just call me Pumpkin Wumpkin again? Hi, Zakora, Starlight said, gesturing for her to sit. Nice to see you. I know you have found for dead bodies a hiding place in that potted plant from outer space. I wouldn't. I couldn't. Starlight looked at the truncheon hidden under her desk and prepared to light her horn and whack Zakora over the head. About this topic I have all your friends told, in case the thought of killing me should make you too bold. All of them? Although you may think my method's shoddy, I must also dispose of a body. What? When a new pony brought to Ponyville competition, it began to affect my potion sales ambition. Oh. I left her corpse just outside your window. Help me by levitating up the bimbo. Phyllis 2 now filled half of Trixie's office. Dash, Starlight said, levitating the latex gimp suit off the body and trying to ignore the smells and bodily fluids. Why did you murder Spitfire? This wasn't murder, Dash said. This was an accident. An accident? Look, Dash said, removing the hood of her own gimp suit. We had consensual down, but we might have missed safe and sane. Derpy, Starlight said with a face hoof. The Ponyville postmaster? Derpy dropped the body and shrugged her wings. I have 2 kids to support. I need the promotion. Twilight, Starlight shouted. This is the 3rd Flash Century today. Are you going to alternate universes just to keep murdering your ex? Yes, Twilight said, removing Flash's eye patch and peg leg to protect the plant's digestion. This one was from the pirate universe. Tree hugger, Starlight said, opening a window to get the smells of unwashed hippie, marijuana, and murder out of her office. She slept with my cult friend, Fluttershy said. Who is? Fluttershy looked at her hooves, blushed, and mumbled indistinctly. For the next 3 hours, Phyllis 2 just stared at her leaves as they swayed in the window's breeze. Who are these 2? Starlight asked as Applejack unrolled the rug containing the 2 bodies. They appeared to be unicorn stones, probably twins, dressed as carnival barkers. No pony who will be missed. Rarity, Starlight said, This is the 4th fashion critic this week. Phyllis too burped. And next week is Manhattan Fashion Week, darling. Damn it, Sweetie Belle, Starlight said. He's a cult. Why'd you kill him? Sweetie Belle sobbed, hugging Rumble's body. I loved him, but he didn't love me back. So you murdered him? No, Sweetie sniffed. I had tried to woo him. Remember the old saying, the way to a colt's heart is through his stomach? Yeah. I cooked him dinner. Scootaloo dragged in the corpse of a young Earth cult. Starlight face-hoofed. What did he do? Nothing, Scootaloo said. It's just, every pony was doing it, so I thought I would kill some pony too. Apple Bloom dragged in Scootaloo's corpse. Oh, for Celestia's sake, Starlight said. What did Scootaloo do? The cult she killed? Starlight nodded. Tender taps. Here was my bow. A yellow Pegasus filly dragged in a large Earth mare's corpse. Who are you? Starlight asked. Alula. What happened? She's a stranger. She invited me inside to try some candy. Big Sis said, never take candy from strangers. Starlight flipped the body over. This is Bon Bon. She runs the candy shop. Lyra dragged in a sack, turned it upside down, and Alula's body fell out. Starlight just shrugged. Yeah, saw that one coming. Back from Manhattan Fashion Week, Starlight asked. Rarity dumped the body in front of Phyllis too. Yes, darling. Who is this? Never you mind, darling. Is she wearing spoon clothes? Never you mind. Pinky dragged in Pinky's corpse. Twilight dragged in another Flash sentry, this one dressed in a charcoal suit and power tie. Which universe is this one from? Wall Street universe. Are you leaving any of them alive? The one from the Rule 63 universe. She and I have a date tonight. Twilight dragged in Twilight's body. But Starlight noticed the living Twilight didn't have wings and wore thick, black-framed glasses. What did you do to Twilight? Please, said the unicorn, looking at the alicorn's body. Call me Princess.
Subsequent to the events you have just witnessed, similar events in cities
Across Equestria.
events which bore striking resemblance to the ones you have just seen begin occurring. Ooh, subsequent to the events you have just witnessed.
You Comfort Fluttershy by Little Owl. 1:21. 1:22. 1:23. 3. As you sit and watch the numbers change on your digital clock, your frustration at your awake and yet paradoxically exhausted brain increase as sleep strays further and further away from you. Damn insomnia. It was something you've had all your life, but recently was becoming a major issue. Initially you think that it won't be a problem as you close your eyes, to take joy from the simple pleasure of having your mind completely shut off from the world, ready to be full of beans and raring to tackle the morning ahead. That's when the minutes start to tick by, about 10 or 15 to be exact, before you realise that you aren't asleep. In fact, you aren't even tired, and you realise that all this time you've been forcing your eyes closed. Some nights you would toss and turn, searching for that sweet spot for your brain to go, "Enough! Sleep now!" But you can never find it until you wake up the next morning realizing you only got about 2 hours sleep in said position. But the worst nights are when you just lie there, still, as if in purgatory, eyes wide open as your clock continues to pass the minutes by as you stare at it, deafening you with its monotonous rhythmic ticking that should be enough to put you to sleep if you weren't so wide awake. Not helping matters is the storm outside. The rain could be relaxing if you were in a especially tired mindset, but on sleepless nights like these, it's nothing but a nuisance. You look out towards the window, completely obscured by the dark, though you could see the outlines of little droplets trickling on the windowsill, ending in a small puddle at the bottom. This eventually becomes completely obscured by the vapor misting the window, and you are left once more with nothing to direct your open wide eyes towards. The brain buzz continues to keep your eyes open. Part of you thinks about turning the lights on and reading a book to help relax you. Options included a bevy of ones Twilight gave you, before realizing that you have already read all of those during previous occasions of restlessness. However, there was that one book Fluttershy gave you on animals you haven't read yet. Maybe that would be an option. Fluttershy. Just the thought of that name already developed a fog of happy, relaxing thoughts in your brain. There was just something about her, as much of a cliche as it sounds, but not even all the wonderful traits that you could name just off the top of your head. It was just her. Her aura, her presence, just her being in the same room as her is enough to increase your heartbeat and make you feel a warm sensation inside. As these delightful thoughts caress your brain, you feel your extremities lower themselves against the covers. No conscious instructions necessary. A blink. Another blink. There is still hope. It's only 1:30 in the morning. You can get a half-decent 7.5 hours sleep before you have to get up for work. Such desperation to not spend your working day a sleep-deprived zombie will surely be enough to get you to sleep. You rustle in your covers, pulling your crumpled sheets back over your end of the mattress. You fluff your pillow, making a neatly woven place for your head and the pillow to do the rest as it consumes you with its blissful fluff. Yes! That was a blink! Now is the moment as you lay your head down, getting one last glimpse of the world. But just when you're about to open your eyes, you hear the turning of the knob and the very slow squeak of your door moving inwards towards your room. You feel like swearing every demeaning profanity at this newcomer that has just ruined your final chance at a good sleep. You're about to give them a piece of your mind until a singular yellow hoof is placed on the front of the door, and you can hear a slight tremble as Fluttershy moves her head around the door, the bottom of her teal eyes barely visible as she peers round to reach your gaze as the red mist swelling inside of you fades into an aura of confusion and concern. You smile warmly towards her as she opens her adorable little mouth to speak. "Oh, Sorry, she says quietly, as if to salvage some of the quiet in the room so that you can return to sleep, only to realize just how fully awake you are. I hope I didn't wake you. I know how difficult and rare it is for you to get a good sleep. I sincerely hope I didn't interrupt one of those. You can't help smiling at her. Though her timid nature hindered her confidence, it made her a very considerate and sensitive pony. For all her flaws, there were traits that gravitate you towards her. Your smile fades, however, when she starts to speak once more with a slight tremble. I just came in because... She seems to struggle to get the words out. I trust you, and I thought the only way I could feel better was if I came to you. Something about you just being there. I thought it would be enough to make me feel better. Your smile grows broader as her face lights up slightly as she continues. You probably want to know why I'm here. She continues sheepishly, turning her face away slightly. You see, I had a nightmare. Your face quickly falls to deep concern as your heart twists in your chest as you stare at your dear friend. No wonder she seems so upset. Every part of your human instinct tells you to reach your arms out towards her and hold her close. You even feel droplets forming in your eyes before suddenly realizing that she was the one who was upset. It's not about you anymore. You don't care about falling asleep. Instead, it's about being there for your friend, and not just any friend, but one that's connection with you is firm and true. A friend whose kind personality and natural beauty only make you care for her as equally as you know she cares for you. Here she is, silent and scared, but also the radiant Fluttershy that was so very much worth protecting. I tried going back to sleep, but I was just too scared. She then blushes ever so slightly. Could I possibly, stay with you, at least for a little bit? Then I promise I'll go back to sleep. You nod. She could stay for the entire night as far as you were concerned. Anything to make her feel better. You motion for her to come towards. Fluttershy climbs in with you, her pink and yellow appearance adding a splash of colour to your boring white covers. You hold an arm up as she scooches closer towards you, and then lower it tentatively before softly making contact with her soft yet delicate touch. You feel her silky pink mane slide down against your sides as she leans her head against it and shyly wraps a hoof around your ribs, before a stifled, nervous sigh leads her breath. Thank you. I really needed this, she says quietly, glancing her eyes to the door, almost as if she is checking to see if the nightmares aren't following her. The sadness and worry you feel inside towards your friend is simply palpable. Whatever the dream was, it scared her good. You can confidently say you have never seen Fluttershy, such a timid and fragile soul as she is, in such a state. You feel helpless, as all you can do is hold her in your arms. Your mind tells yourself to ask if talking about the dream will help, but decide against it in fear of bringing up harmful memories of the clearly unpleasant dream. She came to you so you could chase the nightmares away, not bring them up again. However, talking about them and getting a sense of perspective for them would help you be able to comfort her more, telling her that there's no such thing as the monstrous imaginary figment her dream came up with. Plus, it could give her a sense of perspective, a realization that dreams are in no way real, to the point where she will consider herself silly for even thinking that dreams are real. She could never be silly. Not to you, except for the fact that she trusts all of you people. You stir at her, speaking once more. You are probably the only one I can talk to about this. I trust you. You wonder for a split second if she had just read your thoughts. You conclude that it was just coincidental. However, you wouldn't be so surprised if she did read your mind. Over the time you have known her, you have gained an almost telepathic connection with her. She knows how much you need to hear that she trusts you, and just how much you know that what she needs is someone to listen to her, but also give her a push so she will have the strength to be more confident, especially when it came to talking about emotions. It's moments like these that you realize the true extent of you and hers very strong bond, despite the fact you have known each other for a brief amount of time. You hear Fluttershy inhale deeply as she was able to speak out her biggest and darkest secret. Well, I should probably tell you about the dream. It went like this. I was playing with Angel. You remember my little bunny? At first I thought it was a good dream. Everything was so bright and vibrant and sunny, and we were playing in the springtime flowers. She smiled dully before her face fell to a sure frown once more. But then the dark clouds gathered above us, and Angel started running. I couldn't stop her before she reached the everfree forest. I called out for Angel, but I couldn't find him anywhere. That's when I turned and saw two very big bunnies behind me. Only two at first, but then there were multiple, and they began surrounding me. She starts to shudder as her voice begins to break. They started calling me a murderer as the thunder got louder and louder. And that's when the dream ended. I woke up in a hot sweat, and she begins crying, quietly but with uncontainable despair, burying her face into your chest as you quickly held her in one hand and went to stroke her mane in the other. Looking for any way to comfort her, you have to check that she can breathe properly as you squeeze her close to you, never wanting to let go of the sobbing mare. You cannot stand seeing her like this. You will not stand to see her like this. You will be the knight in shining armor she deserves, chasing away the nightmares so she can sleep and return to a happy, caring self. This mare, it hurts to think about how much you love her. Yes, love her. You care too much about her to not feel this way. She moves her head to over your shoulder and wraps a tight hoof around your neck. Your tears flowing freely as much as Fluttershy's as you start to hear her breathing heavy, stifled breaths, drawn with anxiety and fear. This goes on for a good minute or two. Then her breathing slows, so consumed by the adrenaline of care, you don't fully feel the overwhelming warmth of Fluttershy's fur pressed against you during the embrace. Part of you feels it is necessary to let go and have some space to breathe. You do not want to let go, not until you are sure she is alright, until you feel Fluttershy's mane brush over your shoulder and against your ear as her head recedes and centers itself to meet your gaze. Her eyelashes glistening with the moisture of her tears, but through all of this you can see, faintly but very clearly, a sweet smile spread across her lips. The more she stares into you, threatens for more tears to emit. No, don't you dare say what you're about to say. I'm sorry. You once again press her towards you, your chest cushioning the sheer force of your arms, thrusting her head closer towards you. What could she be sorry for? I just woke you up in the middle of the night, just so I could come to you for pity, like the scared filly that I feel like I am sometimes. Fluttershy says once more, breathing steadying. You cannot believe what you are hearing. You have seen the progress she has made from being that scared filly she once was to a capable and caring friend. Admittedly though, this isn't the first time something like this has happened. In fact, the both of you have had countless nights of consoling, trying to get over horrible nightmare after nightmare. But you don't care. There is nothing, and not just nightmares, but in this world you think that is worth causing Fluttershy harm. No matter how silly the thing she is worrying about might be, you will help her through it. Yes, she has grown more and more capable as time has gone on to the point where she needs your help less and less. Doesn't mean you won't give it to her when the poor mare does need help. Of course you don't want to coddle her, but you don't need to, because she always gets through it. And out from the debris of whatever obstacle she faces, she always comes out the wonderful Fluttershy she always is and always will be. As the both of you lay there, you subconsciously find yourself forgetting your own problems about falling asleep. Thoughts instead focused on the now, shuddering less and less. Pink and yellow mare in your arms. You don't realize it, but you feel exhausted, though you would do it any day of the week. Feeling sorry for another is draining. All the adrenaline of pity, your own tears developing at the sight of another's. It's enough to knock a person out. Eventually realizing this, you begin to relax as Fluttershy releases herself from you, sniffling quietly. You really do care, don't you? She asked softly, before giggling at the sight of your facial expression. You're doing that cute thinking face you do. What are you thinking about? But she doesn't get an answer from you, as you just lay there, eyes wide open, for really you aren't thinking. Instead you are feeling the aura of warmth within the room, having just had a heart-to-heart with Fluttershy. I love you. A quiet voice is heard beside you. Immediately you blush hot pink. A rush of warmth comes to her cheeks as well. It's true, and just you and me alone here reminded me of why. Your heart is pure, and I truly believe you care for me. And you want to know the amazing thing? You don't even do anything. From just you being there, I can tell just how much I mean to you, and how badly you want to chase away those horrible nightmares. You are my hero. You turn away with a modest look on your face. Honestly, to you, caring for another is simply too important to overlook. It's a common courtesy to show one how much they mean to you before your time together runs out. To care for another is something everyone should strive to do each and every day of their existence. What you just did for Fluttershy feels like common sense. Furthermore, you didn't even need to think about said emotions. They just came naturally. Maybe they wouldn't come so easily if you were comforting anyone else. Fluttershy had that effect of evoking empathy from others, but you still needed to feel them. A part of your brain still needed to clock that Fluttershy was upset and she needed someone, anyone to be there for her. You did what you had to do, and in some way it helped you with your problems as well. Hey, the cute soft voice spoke, once again chirps up, tugging you gently by the shoulder. I'm feeling a lot better now, but she yawns and giggles afterwards. I'm a bit too tired to get back to my own bed, so I was wondering if maybe to fix my predicament, I could, well, she shuffles closer to you and wraps her hoof on your midsection. Stay with you tonight, plus I really don't want to be alone, and you are pretty comfy to snuggle. Your only response is a sweet smile. She lifts herself upwards as you shuffle around in the covers, trying to make yourself comfortable, lowering your body so it is lying flatly on the bed, the pillow propped downwards tilted ever so slightly by the rest on the end of your bed. Fluttershy meanwhile lies on her side next to you, propping a hoof up on her head as she stares at you lovingly. You comforted me. I think it's time I return the favour. She then frowns into a pondering expression. I know positive affirmations. If it's for you, then it should be easy. Now, just relax. You exhale a sigh and purposefully close your eyes to relax to Fluttershy's soothing voice as you hear the light get turned off as Fluttershy leans ever so closely to your ear. Words cannot describe how wonderful I think you are, but I figure you would like me to try. Honestly, if you ever think that you are not a nice person or someone worthy of a pony like me, then remember what you just did for me tonight. Your kindness knows no bounds, and your always optimistic persona is enough to keep even the most depressed pony in a mindset that life is worth living. Because without you around, I cannot imagine what life would be like. You are also brave, funny, and so caring. I don't know anybody else like you. You are one of a kind, and you embrace your individuality as someone who just loves being himself. And do not think this goes unrecognized. I've had many conversations about you with the girls and others. Every single one of them agrees that their lives have become so much better since you entered them. I can happily say that I am one of those ponies with an insight to that amazing brain of yours. I feel like I have such a special connection with you, and I would never give that up for anything in the world. We can read each other like books. I feel like I know exactly what you are thinking and vice versa. I don't think I'll share that kind of bond with anyone else except for you. You are special to me and to others, and even if you have to be told it 1,000,000 times over, because let's be honest, you do doubt yourself a lot, I am still more than willing to tell it, because when you love someone as much as I love you, you will do anything to see them smile. You faintly hear her wipe away tears before leaning towards you and brushing her lips against your cheek as you are sent into a blissful shiver as your consciousness starts to fade. I love you, and I will always love you, no matter what happens. I will never forget what you did for me tonight. Good night, my love. Twilight Sparkle Falls in Love with Sand by Greenback. Before she had become the ruler of Equestria, Twilight had enjoyed having at least one day off a week between her studies, and all the various troubles that life threw her way. But now that she had ascended to the throne, her days off were few and far between, with an endless stream of disputes to settle, treaties to negotiate, and matters of state to attend to. Twilight could go months without having a day to herself. It wasn't until Spike presented a carefully researched presentation on how overwork negatively impacted the health, well-being and lifespan of workaholics that she finally agreed to a new schedule of having one day off a week. And to commemorate this new change, she and her number one assistant would enjoy a day at the beach. Now, standing before the sand, Twilight and Spike surveyed their playground. The sky was the cleanest, most vibrant blue imaginable. The sun was pleasantly warm, and the sea calmly came in and out upon the sand. "Well, here we are," Spike said. "The perfect place to kick back and relax." "Yes," Twilight said with a noticeable lack of enthusiasm. "Twilight, I know you want to work, but you promised that you..." "It's not work, Spike," Twilight said. "It's..." "What? What is it?" Twilight sighed. There was no way to confess her secret without sounding like a moron. "It's the... sand." "Sand?" "Yes, sand. To tell the truth, I've never liked it." "Really? Is it because it's coarse, rough, irritating, and gets everywhere?" "Pretty much." "Well, you can always teleport yourself to the water," Spike suggested. "Or I can put a towel on the sand and you can teleport yourself to it." The thought was tempting, but Twilight dismissed it. "That's okay, Spike. As the leader of Equestria, I have to set an example for my subjects and confront the things I don't like." She chuckled. "Besides, it's just sand. How bad can it be?" Spike grinned. "That's the spirit. Now, come on. The surf's calling my name." Eagerly dashing down the beach, Spike didn't see Twilight hesitating for a moment before tentatively putting her hooves onto the sand. In years past, feeling the sand pouring over her hooves and getting tangled in her light layer of fur had felt so wrong. Buried deep within her, Twilight's younger self instinctively wanted to leap back and get away from the sand, lest she needed to take a long shower to get every last grain and pebble out from her most intimate areas. Yet, there was something about this sand that Twilight had never felt before. It seemed like a thing alive, warm and soothing. It felt almost like it was caressing her. "Well," Twilight mused, "this is new." "Twilight, come on!" Spike called. Another step and Twilight made her way through the sand, slowly at first, not wanting the sand to get too high up her legs. Yet, she then found herself starting to jog, quickly catching up with Spike as she put up a large beach umbrella between two towels. "So, which towel do you want, Twilight?" "Actually, Spike, I'm going to go without a towel." "What?" Grinning, Twilight stomped her hooves in the sand. "This sand is different, Spike. It's not like any sand I've ever encountered before." "Really? How?" I can't say." Twilight scooped up a hooful of sand, letting it trickle back down to the ground. "It actually feels good," she smiled. "Really, really good." "Oh, well, that's great. Now, are you ready to have fun?" "You bet I am." My, Spike, if I had to guess, I'd think you had too much fun on your day off," Rarity joked as she walked down the halls of the palace beside Spike. He was rubbing his eyes and looking like he wanted nothing more than to be back in bed. "It wasn't me, Rarity," Spike said, barely able to speak through his yawning. "It was Twilight. She spent her whole day making sand castles, sand cities, sand towers, sand everything. She got so into it, it didn't stop until 5 this morning." "Wait, really?" "Yeah, the guards and I kept trying to make her come to bed, but she just didn't. It was like she was obsessed." "How peculiar," Rarity said. Being the sole ruler of Equestria was a stressful job, and Rarity expected Twilight to have some occasional displays of neurotic behaviour. While Twilight had managed to control those urges as the years went on, Rarity knew they would always be there, just waiting for the right moment to emerge again. "Well, perhaps it's just a one-time thing," Rarity assured Spike. "After all, Twilight has been under a lot of stress lately. She just wanted to make the most of her free time." Yeah, I suppose that's it." Yawning again, Spike took out a scroll and read through it, his stomach sinking the further down he went. "Oh, it's going to be a long day. I'll have to ask the kitchens to keep brewing the coffee." "Well, let's focus on getting the first thing off the list," Rarity suggested. "I have Twilight's new dress ready. I can't wait to see her in it. Just imagine the princess of all Equestria wearing one of my most fabulous dresses, when she greets ambassadors, royalty and commoner alike. Pushing the door to the royal throne room open, Rarity found Twilight at her throne, and something else that hadn't been present the last time she had visited. Twilight? Spike asked. What's with the sand? Giant mountains of sand filled the throne room, almost covering the stained glass windows. Only the lit chandeliers prevented the room from being submerged in darkness. Do you like it? Twilight asked as she clapped her hooves together. I thought the throne room could use a bit of a change. A few bits of sand slid onto the coronation carpet as Rarity struggled to make sense of what she was seeing. But why sand, darling? Why not some potted plants, or maybe some new curtains? If you want curtains, I can... Curtains? Who needs curtains, Rarity? We have sand! We can build sandcastles with commoners, or swim through it with kings and queens from other lands. With a swan dive that put Equestria's finest swimmers to shame, Twilight dove into the nearest pile of sand, her horn cutting through it like a shark's fin. Maybe later, Twilight. Spike brought up his itinerary. We have a lot of meetings to get through today. The Griffin ambassador will be here in 5 minutes and he... Twilight rose from the sand, shaking herself off. Oh, Spike, who cares about meetings? You were right. I worked too hard. Today is going to be dedicated to playing. In fact, everyone can play with me. All the guards and all the staff, we can all play in the sand. But, darling, Rarity said, what about your dress? The one you ordered specifically for the Oh, that can wait, Rarity. We can always get new dresses, but we will never gain back the time we don't spend playing in sand. With a cheer, Twilight once again dove into the sand and swam through it, laughing the laugh of the carefree. Spike and Rarity watched Twilight swimming through the sand-filled throne room. They glanced at each other. They said nothing as they backed up through the doorway. Twilight, Spike said. This is getting out of hand. We can't keep filling the palace with sand. Sitting at the far end of the table in the dining room, Twilight chuckled as she ate her dinner. Oh, Spike, you can never have enough sand. Her horn glowed, and more sand appeared beneath the table, burying Twilight up to her waist, causing her to close her eyes and sigh like a soul that had found its place in the world. Twilight, look, can't you just designate one room at the palace as a sand room? The staff can barely get through the halls, and the medical wing is running out of cream for all the rashes and chafes, but don't worry, Spike. In time, everyone will get used to it, and they'll love sand too. But do you really have to put sand in all the bedrooms? I mean, I have to keep moving my bed up so it doesn't get buried. Who needs blankets and mattresses, Spike? We have sand! Shoving her chair back, Twilight sank deeper into the sand until only her head was uncovered. It's so warm, it embraces you, and it feels so good! Sighing, Twilight sank even deeper into the sand, until only her horn was left, and then that too vanished. A waiter struggled through the sand and put a plate of hay burgers before Spike, trying and failing to discreetly brush sand off the buns. Guys, this is getting out of hand, Spike said. Twilight's gone mad. She's obsessed with sand. Applejack, Fluttershy, Pinkie Pie, and Rainbow Dash, having received Spike's summons, stood before him and Rarity in Canterlot's Park, safely hidden inside one of the most remote gazebos. From the urgency of his words, they had thought that Twilight had been kidnapped, or that Equestria was being invaded yet again, or that the world was in peril from some magically endowed monster, but they hadn't expected this. You want to run that by us again? Rainbow Dash asked. It's all she ever talks about now, Spike said. She hasn't done any of her royal duties since we came back from vacation. All she does is keep filling the palace with sand and playing in it. Spike, is this a joke? Applejack asked. I got a whole bunch of apples that need to be picked and... I swear to you, Applejack, it most certainly is not, Rarity said. Spike's telling the truth. I've seen it myself. What did I tell you? Rainbow Dash said. I always knew Twilight would snap one day. But why sand? Spike said. Why not sand? Pinky said. I mean, it's so cool. You can use it to build sandcastles, then smash them down and build them up again. It's so much fun. But not when she's supposed to be running the country, darling, Rarity said. I think she's been cursed by some spell, and we have to free her from it. The air popped as Discord materialized above the worried ponies. I think I can help with that. Oh no, Applejack groaned. Let me guess, this is all you're doing, Discord. Guilty as charged. When I learned that Twilight was going to the beach last week, I thought it was the perfect opportunity to help her get over her distaste of sand. So I turned invisible, waited until she stepped on it, then cast an enchantment to make her fall in love with sand. He giggled. Oh, it worked perfectly, and it has been most enjoyable watching her fawn over sand like she would the most handsome stallion in all of Equestria. It might have been funny for a day or two, Fluttershy said, but it has to stop. Sighing, Discord nodded. I suppose you're right, dear. It was fun, but alas, all good things must come to an end. Raising his hand, Discord snapped his fingers, smiling at knowing that one of his silliest and most clever pranks that reached a successful conclusion. Then his smile turned into a frown. Discord? Fluttershy asked. Discord snapped his fingers again. Then again. Oh no! What's wrong? Spike asked, trying his hardest to ignore the crater-sized hole that had just opened in his gut. The enchantment. It's not going away. Not going away? What do you mean not going away? The enchantment must have grown so strong that it is now bound to Twilight's very soul, Discord said. I regret to say that Twilight will now want nothing in life but sand. That desire will consume her to a degree you cannot even imagine. Everyone was silent. Are you freaking kidding me? Spike said. This is a disaster, Rarity shrieked. The ruler of all Equestria wants nothing but sand and will ignore all her other duties until the country falls into chaos. Anarchy will reign. Everything falls apart. Oh, I like the sound of that, Discord said. Fluttershy glared at him. But, on second thought, that might be going a bit too far. I'm afraid the only course of action you have now is to use the elements of harmony, wipe the spell from her very soul, and restore our beloved princess to her old self. Spike and the others ran to the royal palace, where Spike grabbed hold of the doors and yanked them open, only to be almost knocked off his feet as sand poured out. Come on! Spike yelled, his superior dragon strength letting him force his way through into the palace, the others following him into the darkened interiors of the palace. The air was saturated with the stench of dry, stale sand that flowed like rushing water. The smell choked everyone as they fought through hallways, trying their hardest not to be thrown off their hooves. Where is she? Rainbow Dash yelled, struggling to be heard over the roar of sand grinding against the walls. Laughter drifted through the halls. Her bedroom, Spike said. This way. The six struggled long and hard until they reached the staircase leading up to Twilight's chambers. Here the sand finally stopped, allowing them to get back on solid ground and charge upwards to the bedroom door. Normally guarded by two of Canterlot's most elite guards, they were nowhere to be seen. Okay everyone, Spike said. Here we go. You all ready? The others nodded, their own respective elements brought out and ready for action. The door was kicked open, and Spike charged inside, only to be immediately bogged down by a tidal wave of sand that knocked him off his feet. Behind him, Rainbow Dash and Fluttershy grabbed hold of Rarity and Pinkie Pie, lifting them up. Applejack, though old, still had her Earth Pony strength and managed to hold onto a pillar to keep herself from being swept away. The sand stirred as Twilight emerged from beneath the surface, serene, confident and blissful. Her eyes opened, sand trickling off her eyelashes as she studied her friends. "Twilight, listen to me!" Spike yelled. "Discord cursed you! He enchanted the sand at the beach to make you love it!" Twilight chuckled. "Oh, Spike, I am no longer Twilight Sparkle. I am now Sandy Sanderson, Empress of all sand." "What?" A glow enveloped Twilight as she floated above the sand that flowed and swirled throughout the room. "I was wrong, Spike. Friendship isn't magic. Sand is magic. Sand is love. Sand is life. Sand is everything." Everyone was speechless. It was a few moments before Rainbow Dash found her voice. "Okay, anyone else getting creeped out?" "Do not be afraid, Rainbow Dash," Twilight said. "You too will come to love sand." "Right, that does it," Spike said. "Twilight, I'm sorry, but we have to." Twilight's horn glowed and the elements of harmony were yanked off Spike's neck and the necks of the others. Metal, stone and crystal turned to sand and fell, joining the ocean of sand that continued to swirl around the room. Did anyone have a plan B?" Fluttershy whispered. "I was lost, but now I am found," Twilight said, unfazed by the fact that her friends had tried to use the elements on her. "My eyes have been awakened to the wonders of sand." Tendrils of sand rose up. "And now, my friends, you too shall be enlightened!" Spike yelled as he was grabbed by one of the sand tendrils and dragged beneath the swirling sand in the room, quickly followed by the others. Their shocked screams drowned out beneath Twilight's laughter. Ponyville, one of the most charming communities to be found in all Equestria, was no more. Only a few days ago, it had been a charming community where everyone lived in peace, children played in the streets without fear, and anyone could sing songs and play with bunny rabbits all day long. Now it was buried under 50 feet of sand. So too was the ever-free forest and the surrounding areas. Tidal waves of sand had washed over them all and claimed the buildings, trees and their residents. It was not just the land around Ponyville. Manhattan had been claimed too, washed away by endless waves of sand that not only buried all the skyscrapers, but the oceans as well. The Crystal Empire was now the Sand Empire. Kludgetown? Well, there wasn't much that had changed in Kludgetown, as it had already been mostly sand. But now it was even sandier. In every land, in every continent, cities, towns and settlements were vanishing beneath waves of sand pouring forth from Canterlot, and it was towards Canterlot that a single airship flew in at attack speed. From the cockpit, Queen Chrysalis, leader of the last desperate alliance of peoples who had not been buried in sand, now directed their last-ditch effort to save the world. Attack! Armies of changelings, ponies, yaks, griffins, and even bat ponies all dropped from the airship into the capital of Equestria. Each was armed with the best armor, the best weapons, the most powerful anti-sand enchantments that unicorns had been able to muster. A crystal glowed before Chrysalis. She tapped the surface, and a magical projection of Turek appeared. "Turek, report!" Screams came from behind Turek. Chrysalis could just make out what looked like tendrils of sand snatching everyone and dragging them into the ever-increasing mass of the accursed sand. And then Tarek was grabbed. He fought, but even his enormous muscles were helpless against the combined might of tons of sand.
Chrysalis!
He screamed.
The sand! There's too much of it! It's too powerful!
Shut up about sand. Just get to the palace and... Another wave of sand washed over Tarek, burying him and silencing his screams. Curses! Chrysalis threw the crystal aside and yanked on her battle helmet. Must I do everything myself? With wings beating, the changeling queen kicked open a door and rocketed towards Candlelight. Twilight Sparkle! She yelled. Come forth and face me! All the sand in Candlelight came together and rose high above the city, growing until a literal mountain of sand towered above the chrysalis. A small hole appeared in the mountain. Twilight floated out, only now her skin was gritty and coarse, and her eyes now glowed a magical beige. Princess! Chrysalis yelled. Stop this sand nonsense immediately! Twilight smiled. Sand? Yes, sand! You are ruining everything with your love of the cursed material. You! Others emerged from the mountain of sand. Chrysalis recognized them. They were the princess's accursed friends, and now their eyes glowed like Twilight's, and sand constantly flowed from their bodies as they floated beside the Empress of all sand. Sand! Twilight said. Sand! Spike said. Sand! The others said in unison. Twilight stretched her arms wide, as if wanting to hug Chrysalis. Sand! Sand shot out and enveloped Chrysalis. She yelled, trying to fight her way free as the sand hardened around her. Sand! Twilight said. Will you shut up about sand? Chrysalis yelled, but the sand engulfed her as she opened her mouth to yell again, and the queen was encased in a warm, gritty tomb. Fluttershy turned to Applejack. Sand? Applejack nodded back. Sand. Chrysalis broke free from her tomb, her eyes now glowing beige. Sand! Yelled, weeping in joy as she embraced the sand that held her, wanting to hug it all day long. Sand! The others smiled. Sand! With a contented sigh, Chrysalis dissolved, her body, her essence, her very soul becoming one with sand. Nodding her approval, Twilight Sparkle's horn glowed, and she too dissolved into the mountain. Her friends joined her, sighing in bliss as they returned to the sand. The mountain of sand dissolved and fell into the valley below, where it resumed flowing through the land. All was silent as wind softly blew over the deserts of Equus. There were no trees standing, no leaves for the wind to rustle. Not even a cactus could be seen upon the sand that stretched from one pole to another, that covered every continent and filled in every ocean. To any observer, this would be a dead world, a lifeless world, a sandy world. At a remote and unremarkable part of the planet, Empress Sandy Sanderson rose from the sand, using it to create a temporary body for herself as she surveyed her work. This world had once been infested with trees, grass, plant life, ice, fire, lava, rock, and oceans. Cleansing and purifying it had been no easy feat, but she had accomplished it, and with it had brought true equality to all. There was no war, no conflicts, strife, suffering, or pain. There was only sand. Sandy Sanderson wanted to laugh. Starlight Glimmer had been hopelessly naive when she believed that she could achieve true equality by taking away everyone's cutie mark, unaware that sand was the only truth in an uncaring world. But it didn't matter now. Starlight was one with sand, as were all the ponies, dragons, changelings, yaks, and other species. all resting peacefully with Sand's loving embrace. Given time, Sandy Sanderson might try to head to other worlds to spread the gospel of Sand. Now ageless and formless, she had all of eternity to bring true equality and unity to the cosmos. Those dreams came to an end as a bright flash of green shot into the sand, with a flash bright enough to illuminate the cosmos, if only for a moment. Equus exploded, hurling the planet's molten remains into the icy void of space. Nearby, a grey metallic sphere in the void. Within its control room, a man in a grey uniform watched the scene. "The planet has been destroyed, Lord Vader." Darth Vader, the Dark Lord of the Sith, said nothing as he pulled his hand away from the control panel and left the room, leaving behind nothing but a few particles of the thing he hated more than anything else to drift forever within the endless void.